recording?
We are live.
All right.
Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2001 movie Black Hawk Down. Nathan, do you have a history with Black Hawk Down?
I remember seeing it in the theaters, and I remember it being pretty good. I think this was out it's right after 9/11.
Yeah.
I remember it being around that time. So I
Yeah.
think it's like, yeah, we got to watch this.
Yeah, this is like the weird patriotic movie that isn't necessarily a patriotic movie, but it was like, is this a preview of what fighting's going to be like in the Middle East? So we better go watch it. Even amongst that further, I don't think this movie didn't do what they wanted it to because it was a very expensive movie. But
Yeah.
And it was also released by a new company called Revolution, which they made a lot of garbage. So this is probably the best movie. I don't think they actually made this. They just got the distribution rights for it. I think like Disney ended up funding this or something like that. So.
Yeah, this is like Jerry Bruckheimer and Sony Pictures and Scott Free were the production people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Forgot how many like major actors were in this.
Oh yeah, there's like, it's either like all the character actors, plus like people in various levels of stardom. Like here's a guy that's a star on TV, here's a guy that's a star in movies, and here they all are in bit roles.
Yeah,
because really, I mean, it's like the star of the movie, I think, is like technically supposed to be Josh Hartnett, but really there is no like one character that stands out.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has their moments.
It kind of ends up being like Josh Hartnett and Tom Sizemore and who's the guy, the Special Forces, Eric Bana.
Yeah. But yeah, this was definitely a post 9/11 movie, and like, almost during, in the same way that like 24 became like a flag bearer for American entertainment after post 9/11, even though it wasn't created. It was created before it even happened.
Yeah, it's something that like took on a life of, just like being what it was, took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
It was like 24, then Lost for people who really didn't want to like bathe in the actual like horror and intrigue. They just wanted to escape something. It's like, well, there's Lost too.
But yeah, this is an interesting movie that like, it was that like it was, vaguely supported by the government, because like, they got to use Black Hawk helicopters, which is like the first time a film's got to do that. And it's not necessarily a patriotic movie, other than like, obviously the Americans are the good guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of in a weird situation, and they are acting bravely and not with cruelty or intent to harm. So it's like, it's guys in a bad situation, which actually becomes like the theme of the whole film.
Yeah.
It's like, why do we do this? It's solved nothing. It's like, it's about the love for the man who we're fighting with. It's, well, it's not characterized as love, but it's the camaraderie of like, yeah, we're here. This is nebulous, but as long as the guy next to me is alive and he's keeping me alive, this is the best you can hope for. And it's like, well, that's what the whole movie is essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
no one's really solving any problems here,
and that's a common thing. That's not like a new idea or anything. That's always like, because it's ultimately, it's like, you're not going into a battle fighting for like the political ideology. It's just like, how do I stay alive? And then incidentally, you either help or hurt the political ideology that you're, vaguely behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got released that in 2001, kind of in like in a kind of like a circuit fashion to make them qualify for the award season, because it got like really high ratings in the previews.
And I remember seeing it was like, I think it was February
Yeah,
when it was like
it got released
really
at.
cold. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it got released in January, but it wasn't released as a
Okay.
January movie. It was released as like a award contender movie.
Oh, okay.
But it's also a rated R movie, so that it's a
Yeah.
$90 million rated R movie.
Which didn't really seem too horrible to me, but I guess I could see why it would get an R rating.
Oh yeah, there's people
Because
being
people
blown
just
up
get
over the
blown
place.
into
Yeah.
bits. Yeah, that happens a lot actually. It's like what happens when those helicopters with the "Wah" guns just like mow down people. It's like, oh, they just blow to pieces because they're being hit by hundreds of bullets at once. It's like, oh, okay. We all kind of knew that, but now we get to see it.
um, so yeah, it's of course. Well, I don't know if this is of course. This is Ridley Scott coming off of Gladiator, so
Yeah.
like the year after. So um,
This is the Ridley Scott can't lose era.
yeah. Well, even though like I don't know, I feel like people said like this didn't do financially well, but like again, so it's a $90 million rated R movie, and people seem to like it. So there's that.
It
Uh,
seemed to be a movie that like maybe it wasn't everyone's cup of tea to watch, but it was a cultural like totem pole. Like
oh
everyone knew
yeah,
about this movie, and eventually they watched it either on like they rented it or something. Like I think there's a lot of people because
yeah.
the $90 million budget and made like $200 million. Um,
There's also definitely you can see like what probably is ends up being a far more cultural relevance was in 2007 you have the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare coming out, which is definitely influenced by this movie.
yes, very
And like
much.
and that thing was huge.
Yeah.
And still is today. It's one of the biggest games still going.
Oh yeah.
And not the franchise, not necessarily that game unto itself, but um yeah, this is our I think yeah, this is our third Ridley Scott movie in this for the podcast, second in this weird section that we're doing here because we did White Squall as well. We even
Yeah.
have some returning actors from White Squall coming in here. Uh, I forget. I looked at. Let's see here. Cinematographer is Slavomir Idziak.
Yeah. I'm gonna say yes.
Every time I don't know. Every time I'm surprised, but this guy is Well, I think he's Polish. I don't know. Sometimes I get burned by that time because I pull up the page and it says like where they were from. And it's like born in Poland, and like half the time it's like yeah he's born in Poland, but he's like from New Hampshire. He like lived there for the last 20 years
Yeah.
because it doesn't tell you that. But
Showed
uh,
up in America in diapers. So it's like, oh, for all intents and purposes, an American with a weird name.
but as far as I know, he's got a lot of movies on here I don't recognize. So yeah, I think it's a Polish actor. First thing you'd recognize him for was he did Gattaca, another
Yeah.
great sci-fi movie. Um, yeah, other stuff I recognize: Proof of Life, then Black Hawk Down, the Antoine Fuqua King Arthur movie,
Oh, I
which
was
is
kind of I had that one always had a soft spot for that movie. It's like, this isn't good, but it's fun.
well, it kind of does that like it's kind of doing that King Arthur, but what if it's real? And then there's some like history behind it, but it's still a stupid action movie. So
Yeah, yeah.
then he did one of the Harry Potter movies, and then I don't recognize any of his movies after that. So, um, but yeah,
Oh, yeah. The Natalie Portman movie was like that was the one she directed.
what's that?
The one, the Tale of Love and Darkness.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, well, it's basically about how the Jews were treated in Europe
Oh,
and
okay.
why Israel was formed and stuff.
Huh.
It's kind of interesting. It's like oh, I forget how old it is. It's probably 10 years old
This is
now.
2015, so
Okay, yeah, I remember. It's very cool looking film. It like really
okay.
captures the time of like the 1920s, the 30s, the Holocaust. It's all just kind of vignettes, and it's because it ends up in Israel. It's like, yeah, this is why we did this because we're not waiting around to be exterminated in the next one.
But yeah, this movie is very striking looking. It kind of has that bleach bypass look to it, but I'm not sure if it's actually doing that. Because you can also compare that to Three Kings, which that's what that movie's kind of known for, that look. But here it's kind of like, I don't know, a grittier version of that. I'm not even sure if they did that for this, or if by this time they had like really effective digital intermediates where they could basically just do anything they wanted with the color palette. But
Yeah, I'm not. I think this was supposed to look sun-blasted. Was the
yeah.
idea I got? Is like, yeah, this is a. Well, I mean, actually, because it looks like hell. Like it's like, oh, they're just going into hell to fight. There's like tires burning. These cities, like it's a combination of like Judge Dredd's Mega City 1, but with like tire fire. It's like, oh, you could tell like, oh, so they built structures here and there was a city here, and then you zoom in on the city and there's like just open air bazaars where you can buy RPGs and fully automatic weapons, and there's tires burning and dogs running around everywhere, and but it actually looks like, oh, is this is like the Hieronymus Bosch pictures of people being tormented in hell. Like this, when you pull in tight on it, it's a, yeah, it looks really weird.
Yeah, it's very. It's like the color palette is basically just yellow and black.
Yeah.
It almost looks like if you're just like, yeah, like you said, sun blasted, but you have sunglasses on. But like everything has like a high contrast to it. So like all the Black Hawk helicopters, like they basically look like pure black.
Yeah, yeah, they are Black Hawk helicopters. Yeah, it is like if you're wearing lenses. What do you call those? Like polarized lenses.
Yeah.
Polarized yellow lenses is this world. And the street scenes are. It's like this is the worst place you could ever be. This is a post like rules society. They really capture that well.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's one thing they do well is they really don't. They have a villain and a villain in name, but they don't have like a person representing it. Like the big idea is like, well, there's a warlord and they're stealing food that the people are being given from the UN in America, and then they're using it against them.
Yeah, they're
it's
basically letting people who they consider their enemies, and we don't know why. We find out it's tribal, but it's never really explained. The Somalians and the people that are fighting there are just an amorphous force that is so alien to us. It's like, why would you just starve your enemies to death? Like that's the worst possible human death almost. And it's like, this is our world and you'll be gone soon and we'll still be here. And it's like, oh yeah, we've a tale as old as time we've been told. Yeah.
And this is based on a book by Mark Bowden, which, you know, it's based on a real event. And he does a lot of stuff like that. He did a lot of he did like the Killing Pablo book, did a lot of famous stuff. So
yeah,
you actually read the books. I don't know. I assume he's a good writer.
Yeah, he's a very good writer.
Okay.
It's very how could I say? It's kind of like Sebastian Younger, but a little more like a little less airy and a more like, here's some details. Like I didn't understand like how the Rangers and Delta Force operated and worked together, and it's like I didn't understand how that worked until I read this book. I mean, I don't know if it's that way anymore, but it's like, oh, okay, so they're like a group within a group. Because I always thought like Airborne Rangers were like, oh, that's a specialized group, not special forces, but like those guys do a very specific thing. They're trained to a very high level, and Delta Force was like the step up from that. But I didn't realize like, no, they kind of actually work together, and that's where they draw people from Delta Force from the Rangers. Like I didn't understand that relationship before I read that book. So, and then when you see the movie, like, well, reading the book is not necessary to watch this movie, but it does. It's like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. It's like I don't understand the interrelationships here. They don't seem as like, is this real? Is this for Hollywood? How do these people work together? You know, why is a sergeant basically laughing at like a captain or a colonel? It's like, that doesn't seem like what I understand as being normal, but I didn't realize like, oh wait, these are special forces.
Yeah, why do these guys have different haircuts? Why are they not held to the same standard? It's like, well, actually,
everyone else has like really big ears, and these guys have like beards and sunglasses. It's like, oh, the beards and sunglasses are basically the okay, yeah. But the book makes
and
that
and they and
clear,
they
and when you see it in the movie, it's
and
like,
they
oh,
get laser dot sights. Like, why are they so special? It's because they're
yeah,
badasses.
yeah, because they can kill like 100. They operate in the world of 1,000 to 1 kill ratios, where it's like normal soldiers can't achieve that unless they have like one of those spin guns and just waves of zombies attacking them. It's like, no, these guys can do that with like silenced weapons somehow. But
um,
yeah, this was the first movie that made like you said, this ties so close to Call of Duty, like this kind of combat. I don't think you saw this before this movie.
no,
It was a lot of like,
not modern combat. Because like, I mean, if you want to put it in perspective, Saving Private Ryan was 3 years before this,
mm-hmm,
and you could say like very similar movies in kind of tone and stuff, but different eras
yeah,
completely.
different tech for sure.
Yes.
Well, because Saving Private Ryan was like, what if you just pulled guys out of Chicago that were delivering milk? And it's like, here's a machine gun, go
Yeah.
fight the Germans. And of course, these guys are like holding the guns around the corner, so they don't want to get shot. I mean, yeah, screw that. These guys are trying to kill us. It's like that's.
Yeah, that's
Whereas
a
this was
drafted
like,
army versus for these guys that volunteered.
yeah, they volunteered. Yeah, that's what
And
ultimately was so sad about Saving Private Ryan is these guys were forced to do this. Like it was do this or go to prison. It's like, man, that sucks.
and like the
Like
weird thing
raps are unpopular.
and the weird thing that like I guess kind of hit me like at the end of the movie, you get like the follow up trivia is like, so 2 Medal of Honor recipients come out of this engagement, and it says the first time since Vietnam. I was like, oh shit, did nobody, dude, was the Iraq
Nope.
War such a pushover that nobody did anything brave.
No, what they call the Persian Gulf War was almost, it was like the shark from, remember the Candygram from Saturday Night Live,
Yeah.
and they opened the door and a shark would eat them. That's kind of like with those camera missiles. It was like knock knock, you have Candygram, and they open the door and it explodes. It's like, yeah, that was. I know people died in that war, but it
Yeah.
was also such a lopsided like. It's like, hey, a Bradley fighting vehicle can destroy 30 Soviet era tanks. Did you know that? It's like, oh my god, really? Wow, this crap worked. Wow, holy shit! An A-10 Warthog literally ran out of missiles and bombs twice, destroying tanks. Like he had to fly back and get more fuel and bombs. Like, no, send me back out. Like, what? You used all this shit? Yeah, it's amazing. Like one tank like killed a guy in a Bradley, and it's like time to go kill 1,000 people. What's it called? The Battle of 76 Easting or something crazy like that. It was like the last tank war.
Oh
It was,
yeah. Okay.
it was just an utter annihilation.
Oh yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
it was like the War of the World.
Yeah, I don't think in the first Desert Storm, I don't think we lost a tank to enemy fire. I think it
Mm-mm.
was only to friendly fire.
Yeah, there were some destroyed, but that was guys that. And also, like when you watch that stuff, like stuff about that war, it's like, oh, the technology almost seems a universal way from the early 90s to the Iraq war. It's like, oh, it seems way different. And I think ostensibly it was just smaller.
But I mean, that's the contrast here, where it's like in that war, essentially it was like, here's a full-on war and open field fighting, and it's like, oh yeah, well nobody's gonna beat us there. And then here, it's like, it's what do you call it, urban warfare, and you're
Yeah.
fighting you're on a moment's notice, you're fighting people that like that's where they live, and like it's unfamiliar to you and all that, and you're not even there to fight. Like this whole thing was about like, let's grab this guy and like change the order of of the situation. Then it all goes wrong and it ends up a firefight.
Well, that's the thing. Like they knew before. Like I'm recalling the book because they always talked about like the nightmare of a non-nuclear World War III in Europe would be getting the Russians, the Soviets, then out of the cities. It's like that urban warfare is like the casualty, like just the chart of casualties goes so high when you start doing that, especially when the other team is on their home turf.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're done. I mean, those guys are gonna know like this is how the sewer works. Like you're not gonna know I mean, maybe now you would with like drones and stuff, but even then, it's like, yeah, it's any weapon you have, they will also have. Not maybe not as fluid and as well used as yours is and well understood, but yeah, they will have it. I mean, that's like the whole fight in this movie was like, yeah, these guys were using like 80s era Soviet stuff, but what they had on their side was numbers and an insane disregard for their own well-being. It was like, yeah, this is nuts.
um, and then the screenplay is written by Ken Nolan, who just seems to be a Bruckheimer guy.
Yeah.
So he wrote. Well, no, I guess he wrote a Transformers movie, and he hasn't really done a lot. Huh.
If you do a good Transformers movie, you don't have to.
I don't think it was a good one.
Oh, okay. Those first three, I remember. That's like they just made insane amounts of money.
And he wrote the Only the Brave, the firefighter movie, which I think that's based on a book too.
Okay.
But I don't know. Just a guy, I suppose.
Just a guy just adapted a very complex book into a very complex movie.
Oh, he's got upcoming stuff. Let's see. Upcoming The Amateur, Luna Park, and The Debriefing. I have no idea. But yeah, he's got Black Hawk Down in 2001, some TV miniseries called The Company 2007, a short story in 2014, 2017, a Transformers movie in 2017, Only the Brave. That's his only writing credit. So this guy either is like a fix-up artist and like fixes up other people's screenplays for money so you never hear about him, or he has some other job, or he got enough money from one of these jobs he just doesn't have to write again if he doesn't want to.
Yeah, probably a punch-up guy.
Yeah.
So those people don't make as much money as you think when you look into them.
What, punch-up guys?
Dude, it's a lot of people that work in Hollywood. It's like yeah, I made $500,000. Like, oh, for one job? It's like, no, in total. I also sell cars. It'll be some weird thing like that.
Yeah, well, especially if you live in California, you got to do that.
Well, now all the guys that do the California-based podcasts I listen to say they have the coolest bouncers now at clubs because all the stunt guys and stuff. It's like, well, we got to get another job.
Yeah.
So they have like these bouncers that are like, oh, you're a stunt double for Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, yeah. So they vaguely look like Arnold Schwarzenegger from behind or something. It's like, yeah, I'm a stunt guy, but now I'm just like doing the Roadhouse thing. It's like we're just gonna literally grab people and toss them out the front, like bodily out the front door.
Oh, they're all millennials now, Nathan. You can just grab them easy, throw them easy.
Are millennials supposed to be lighter?
Actually, no, that wouldn't be millennials. It'd probably be Gen Z now. No, but that's always the thing is that all the newer generations are just like they can't fight for themselves. They're all just a bunch of pussies. There's all that thing.
I must have raised a weird kid. I don't know. Because Grayson's like close to benching 200 now regularly.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying boomers think that all the time.
Oh, I know.
Every generation's weaker.
That kind of talk that like, oh, all these new kids are pussies. It's like, well, my son, if you piss him off, is like not. He's not. He will stand up for himself.
No, like I know like the generation coming up is better than the ones previously, but they just don't have any money or opportunity to show it. So it's just and then people are still gonna bitch at them for like, why aren't you having more kids to fill the gap?
Yeah, why aren't you buying a house? Come buy my house for $400,000 that I paid a quarter of that 28 years ago, and so I can go like retire onto a beach or whatever. No, I get why young people are mad. I mean, they don't have. I would not want to be.
Yeah,
sometimes
but I
wish I was born like.
They're not really mad. They've kind of
was.
accepted it. It's just the weird thing that the boomers are just angry at them for I don't know reasons. It's like they set them up for failure and they failed.
Yeah. We thought you'd prove us wrong. Like, oh yeah, strip us of any money or hope. It's like, oh, we're gonna succeed. You ever seen that movie Black Hawk Down, the streets of Somalia? It's like, yeah, that's what happens when you strip everyone of hope and money.
So the cast is Josh Hartnett, Ewan McGregor, and Tom Sizemore, and a bunch of people who, even enough people I'll forget who's who. I didn't write them all down.
Oh yeah, I'm not even going to try to keep track of. You
I don't.
know, a few
I,
of them
I
stand out.
I'm gonna have a lot of notes. I mean, I guess the most interesting thing about this movie is how once it starts, once the action part of the movie starts, it's just pervasive to the end of the movie. It's almost just one giant action scene. Because I had
Yeah,
to
it's
like,
like almost like continuous scene real time. It's not, but you get that vibe
yeah, yeah.
sometimes.
Well, there's like one scene where it's like it's cut and it feels like, oh, this is all in the same scene, but they put the timestamp on it. It's like, oh, you're saying that's 3 hours later? It doesn't feel like
Yeah, everyone had to catch their breath. You know?
it. And I guess full disclosure, because I was like, it's like, oh man, I started watching this movie late last night around 9 o'clock, and so I was watching on Netflix, so I used the Netflix feature to play it at 1.5 speed. So, but then I had to kept pausing it to write down stuff because anytime a title popped up, I had to write that down, and then I had to like. It's like, oh, who's this actor? And I had to go down a Internet Movie Database hole. So I basically ended up watching like the 2.5 hour length of the movie, but in the note taking time. But I watched at 1.5 speed. So we got Act One. We got titles based on an actual event. True. Then we get a quote: "Only the dead have seen the end of war" by Plato. Really,
True.
I get. I don't. I don't know like what deeper meaning that has other than like wars in the title and there's people dead.
Well, it's just basically the struggle and humanity never ends.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's like I don't know, it's like given. I don't know. I don't know what they're adding to.
Yeah,
I don't know if that
it's just
I don't know if that was like put in the book. Is that Ridley Scott bringing that here? Is like what's bringing this here?
well, the thing is, when you go to areas like this in film, and you make movies and stories about places this old. It's like, oh, this is the ancient world, and it's like they're still fighting with helicopters and machine guns. You know, before it was swords. Before that, other weapons. Riding horses and swinging swords, and it's like, yeah, the conflict never ends. Like I think it's just give it like a tapestry of history.
All right, I guess. I don't know.
That's what I get out of it. It could be full of shit too. That always happens.
Well, that one, yeah. This just seems like a pretentious quote to me. It's like that doesn't add anything to this other than to a sense of self-importance, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's like Plato. This must be legit.
Yeah, I forget. There's some other quote that they had before that seemed more like less patriotic, so they took it out and had this one just put in its place. So
I mean, they could have had Lucy, like from Charlie Brown, like, I won't pull the football away this time. So yeah, here goes America again. We're gonna solve the world's problems and bring democracy to. Whoa, the football got pulled away. Oh no.
then we cut to I wrote it's a burial ceremony, but I actually don't know. It's like someone dead wrapped in a cloth, just kind of lean. It looks like a horror movie.
Yeah, it looks like something from like some kind of bizarre abattoir where it's like we don't really preserve bodies or anything. We just press cloth in the eyes so you can see the face, and
Yeah,
you're just gonna rot. And it's like, well, this looks like some kind of catacomb burial. It's like,
yeah.
this looks hopeless.
Or it looks like the start of a horror movie before they like raise the dead or something like that.
Yeah, then they're having someone chant in Somalian.
So we get titles says Somalia, East Africa, 1992. There's a truck rolling down the dusty road. This isn't actually 1992. It's just kind of you need a tapestry behind all these titles you're about to feed the audience. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Years of warfare among rival clans causes famine on a biblical scale. 300,000 civilians die of starvation.
That's nuts.
Yes. That's this entire city dead. I'm not sure the time frame on that. I also know
A year.
also just there's a civil war going on too. That's just not even the deaths of the Civil War either, right? So that's just
It
just
went on
death
from
all over.
91 to 92 before relief started to come in. And in that year, it estimated 300,000, possibly more.
Yeah. But that's just from starvation. Like, do you think there's more
Yeah.
deaths from just war?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's well, let me look it up. Let me go to my one thing here. 500,000 people direct casualties of the Somalian civil war over the course of 5 years.
Huh.
Almost 4 million people displaced to Europe, the United States, all over the world. Less than 20% of those returned. Well, yeah, I can see that. I mean, you look, if you go from like Somalia to like
France.
Wisconsin, it's like you're not coming. I was like, oh, maybe I should go do the Somalia thing again. It's like, no, you're never going. Once they show you those fried cheese curds, you ain't coming.
They wear cheese on their heads for fun. Like, I'm
Yeah, they
staying
wear
here.
food as clothing, and they call me a skinny. It's like I'm the god of the universe here, and people are generous, and they don't slit your throat here. It's like I will be the god of Milwaukee
No,
or
they
wherever.
are. No, half of them are openly racist, and the other half are quietly racist. But I'll deal with that versus
Yeah,
death.
but they can't kill me.
Not without repercussion.
Yeah.
So
Oh, can you
Mohammed.
imagine like coming to from Somalia and just like here you are, and because I think a lot of them did wind up in like Milwaukee or something.
Yeah.
It was like that's what the decided place was like. Literally a place where it's below freezing half the year. It's like you're in a North African, country in the desert. And now you're coming to a frozen place that's just like the world's capital of dairy. I mean, I can't imagine being in that. That'd literally be like, well, you're going to the moon. It's like it's so far away from what they know. Because places as bad as Somalia are like you can actually like think of that at night. Like that exists on Earth right now. Like this wasn't a work of fiction. Like this is really going on, and that's really sad. I don't know how you solve these problems, but
Uh,
neither does anyone else. The people that are supposed to know don't solve them.
what's
So
her?
it's like,
Is it Ilian Omar, the Minnesota representative? She's from Somalia.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that is her. No, so she's not from Milwaukee though. She'd be from uh
Minnesota.
yeah, Minnesota. So yeah. So yeah, that's where they went, like the coldest place in America.
So, Mohammed Farah Adid, the most powerful of the worlds, rules the capital Mogadishu. He seizes international food shipments at the ports. Uh, Hunger is his weapon. The world responds behind a force of 200,000 Marines. Food is delivered and order is restored. April 1993, Adid waits until the Marines withdraw and then declares war on the remaining U.S. UN peacekeepers. In June, Adid's militia ambushed and slaughtered 24 Pakistani soldiers and began targeting American personnel. In late August, Americans' elite soldiers, Delta Force, Army Rangers, and the 106th SOAR are sent to Mogadishu to remove Adid and restore order. The mission was to take 3 weeks, but 6 weeks later, Washington was growing impatient. And then we get the title Black Hawk Down. And then we cut to it's Saturday, October 2nd, 1993. We got a Black Hawk hovering over food aid, and then there's the Josh Hartnett character is in the chopper here, but they're just kind of like flying around the food, presumably to keep order. But then the warlord guides come up and just start killing people and taking the food, and they're like, "Can we engage?" They get information, no, and then they just pull away, and they do have like some guy kind of like playfully like finger guns at the or rocket launcher motion at the Black Hawk. I don't know if any of these people are supposed to be anybody. It's just kind of an amorphous bad guys with guns.
Yeah, I mean, they're like shooting into crowds with like Ma Deuce 50 calibers on the back
Yeah.
of pickup trucks, like just killing like 50 people at a time. It's like, geez. But you can't shoot at them unless they're shooting at you. That's the rules of like the
Yeah.
ROE.
Yep.
Can't do it. Which I
Uh,
don't know if that really exists. Probably, I don't know.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. There's some things you hear stuff like, because I hear stuff all the time. You know, you'll get like more formal written stuff, but like I always hear issues of like you're only supposed to respond with like and like I don't even know how you necessarily figure this out, but it's like if they're shooting small arms at you, then you can only respond with small arms. That's
Like you can
things I
only it's
heard.
only proportional response.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
heard, but like somehow I don't think that's followed through on. But yeah, if a guy's like opening an AK-47 at you, then presumably it would be wrong to open up the Maw Deuce on him, or whip out a rocket launcher or stuff like that. This would not be a proportional response. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't know who the referees are who are going to be taking track of this stuff. It's like once you get shot at, like things kind of go out the window.
The best book I ever read about like the United Nations peacekeeping, and this was in Africa. It was a book I've talked about it a lot because it haunts me. It's called Shake Hands with the Devil, and it was written by a guy named he was a General Romeo Dallaire. He was a Canadian general, like lieutenant general, and he was in charge of the Rwandan peacekeeping forces that were sent there to stop the massacres that were just openly going on. And it was so he couldn't get manpower and equipment. Um, America wanted to get involved, but we didn't want to do it under the UN auspice because we felt like we just got burned in Somalia a year before. And so the UN wouldn't let us help. And Clinton was like, okay, well, I guess we can't help you then. And then, yeah, their rules of engagement and how they like, they could only respond if they were attacked. But if
Yeah.
people were being massacred in front of them, it's like, we can't, that's not in our, that's not what we're, it got really confusing. It's like, what are we doing? And just watching people, I mean, just taking soldiers in here to watch people get massacred and screwed up in the head by seeing that,
It's
or
like the modern version of like the ladies laying out picnic blankets during the Civil War.
yeah, yeah, we're just gonna watch this, and it was a lot of like machete killings and stuff. It wasn't like a lot of machine guns involved. Um, and yeah, but it talks about like his just frustration at every point, um, and how they really desperately needed troops and just equipment because they said, look, these people are not, that their society like kind of dissolved, but it wasn't like what we're seeing in this movie because they didn't have like a bunch of RPGs and AK-47. They're basically running around with machetes. It's like if we were allowed to step up the game there, we could stop these massacres, because it's like these guys run at you with a machete, would just shoot them, and then everyone else is going to put down their machete pretty quick. But
It's gonna be an entire war of that scene from the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
yeah, just the one guy pulls out like a revolver and just shoots the guy and is like, okay, who's next? And everyone just runs away. But yeah, it wasn't allowed to have. It's a lot more complicated than what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I remember the book, like just this guy's description of like what village-wide, citywide machete massacres were like. It's like that's and again happening right at the end of the 20th century, like not some made up story. And it's like, god damn, this is really. Uh, I stopped reading books like that after a while. It's because they just kept coming out. It's like
Yeah.
if this was all behind us, it's like, oh wow, this is terrible.
You're
But wow,
forgetting about this horror.
yeah,
More titles and information. I'm not sure when this ends, but we'll keep getting.
that's why when people run into the Capitol on January 6th, I'm like, well, I know where this leads. I've read the books about, like, give this 20 years, and yeah, it'll be machete massacres in Cleveland. I mean, let's just calm down a little bit, but you know,
Mogan.
you're being dramatic, Nathan. I know.
I guess this is a cut to. It says titles: Mogadishu Black Market, a deed-controlled territory. We got Eric Bana who plays Hoot, Sergeant Hoot. I don't know their actual. Internet Movie Database only has like their last name. They don't have their rank. And then the army does that thing where everyone's just sergeant. So I don't know who's who.
Yeah, I had to look some of that stuff up.
He's hanging around the black market, which at first here I thought he was just like a CIA guy because it's been a while since I watched this. But no, he's a Delta Force guy, just keeping
Blending in.
yeah. Yeah, he's got his weird ruby Ray-Ban glasses that wrap around.
Yep. Like, this guy's not obviously spying on us or an operative of American forces in any way. Like, how could he be? He's Australian. Norm Hoot Gibson, Sergeant First Class, like you said. Everyone's a sergeant.
Think that's an E7. He tips off that one of the warlords is leaving, so he has he's talking to somebody, and then there's a convoy that gets sent out, and U.S. helicopters stop the convoy, which is pretty cool because the guy just fires an M16 into an engine block from a moving helicopter. Here it's movie magic, but it's like, see how badass these guys are. One bullet stopped a machine.
Yeah, it's cool.
On the go. So yeah, they stop a convoy. They bring one of the guys in. This is the actor's name is George Harris. He plays Otto. He bring them in for questioning. He's like a lesser gangster, but he's like selling. But it makes it seem like Adid is his competition, but also not because he's selling guns to him. So he's like the gun runner and like kind of support warlord unto himself.
Yeah, he's like a capo to Adid. He's not the main guy, but he's the main guy's like best buddy. He's the main guy's.
Well, he doesn't seem like he's Adid's friend. He's just like,
no, he's an opportunist.
Yeah.
Everyone who sells guns in movies is portrayed. The only sympathetic portrayal maybe would be Lord of War, Nicolas Cage, but usually like gun runners are portrayed as just dark figures that like actually he revels in the violence he's engaging with. It's like, no, in real life they're just greedy businesmen, but make them seem sinister.
They would sell children, but guns are more available.
Yeah. They just do whatever needs to be done. Organize a softball team, sell guns, put people in cattle cars. It's all just a job. It doesn't
matter. Here, Sam Shepard, who plays General Garrison, he comes in to like interrogate him. They're like familiar with each other, so apparently like, this has been done before. Here the Otto offers him a Cuban cigar, and he's like, yeah, I got one too, which is, I guess, presumably in '93, like that would be illegal for the general to possess, but he's got it. So.
Well, he has the Miami variant.
Oh, that's right. Yes, yeah. Because Otto's like, no, you need the real one. Yeah. So basically, here's like, they're trying to capture Adid, and they just want more information. So like, this guy sort of sells him out, but really, he just sets up the whole situation of like it's a civil war. You guys are going to be gone and still going to be going on. So yeah, it's setting everybody up for failure. You're going to try.
It's explaining how you're going to fail.
Yeah, not because of a lack of execution or power or all that stuff. It's just because it's inevitable.
Yeah, and just weight of numbers.
Yeah,
we'll just wait you out, which is, he wasn't wrong. He knew his business.
We get titles. We cut to the Mogadishu airport, the U.S. Army headquarters. We got helicopters being spun up. You hear the voice of Cliff Elvis Wolcott, here played by Jeremy Pivens, who would later be like the star of Entourage, like 4 years later or something.
Yeah, I forgot like Jeremy Piven was in this.
Yeah, I think
so many actors in this.
Oh yeah. Although I think like the most thing he'd be known for here would probably be CPU or no PCU.
Yeah, probably. It's kind of a weird role because he's usually known for his like comedic stuff.
I mean, here he's kind of a joke. He's cracking jokes and stuff like that because he's doing like the flight attendant, like as they get in the helicopter thing, and he's playing Elvis. So because they start playing Suspicious Minds. It's like, oh, that's why they call him Elvis, Which that's like the lucky thing, because like when you hear about like people's call signs all the time, it's like all the cool ones in like movies, it's like nobody ever gets called that. But here, it's like I'm assuming that's his real call sign, so he got a good one. Like most people are like, "What's your call sign?" It's like Colgate. Like, why do they call you that? It's like I can't tell you that. It's like, does it have something to do with sex? It's like I cannot disclose. But it's not like, yeah, you're Maverick. It's like, no, you're you're Stomps. It's like, why do they call you Stomps? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's always some odd like thing.
Yeah.
It's like you're never called like the interdictor or something. It's always like yeah, like toothpaste or something.
There we got. Then we cut to Todd Blackburn shows up. This is Orlando Bloom. He shows up to the unit, like, so he's like checking in, and then he's checking in with Ewan McGregor, who plays Grimes. Like, I thought he was an admin clerk, but they make it seem like he's just a ranger that can type, and so they make him do the admin work, and they don't have an admin guy. And everybody like, oh, Blackburn's like 18. He's born in 75. So I was like, oh, so at this time, this guy would have been like your age.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that gives you a weird connection to this at all. Like,
yeah, see, it's like the year I graduated high school or something. Like, this movie came out.
Oh, yeah, what were you doing when this was going on in 93?
Stealing cars.
And when this happened...
I'm kidding.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Unless somebody got killed.
I don't... Well, I can't say. I can't disclose. I don't think so. I didn't have.
I don't know, like that. Like, I don't know. In '93, do you like? Because basically, like, this movie, when I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this happened. I don't recall this." Like, did you like know about this before the movie came out?
Oh yeah, I knew.
Okay.
I mean, I knew. I like I said, watched the movie, then read the book.
Okay.
The movie got me interested in the book, but I knew like, oh, a bunch of. Let's see. I would have been living in Indiana, and so what would I have heard? Oh, Bill Clinton cowardly got a bunch of our people killed. We should go in there and nuke that country. Like, there was things like that being said.
Yeah.
As in the reporting about it, it's like, yeah, we should just like park an aircraft carrier off Somalia and just raise the country to the ground. It's like, yeah, because that's what those people. That's gonna. That's what they deserve. So yes, I do remember this, and yeah, like '93 was like, oh, that would have been great music around then, which didn't feature a lot in this movie.
No,
except
at
they
all,
did
not
play
at all.
Faith No More.
We got an Elvis song and no '90s music.
Oh no, they played Faith No More.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah, when they were all taken off, that's like the lyrics are like back and forth, I sway with the wind. And supposedly they were playing it over the speakers, but
okay.
Yeah, there was no like Pearl Jam or Nirvana or anything.
No Soundgarden.
Yeah. Blow
See,
up the outside world. Jeremy. Just guys running around with guns.
Then we cut to like Hoot gets picked up on the beach by a Black Hawk, and he's got his bike with him. Then we cut to there's a firing range they set up on the beach, and we got Sergeant Eversman, played by Josh Hartnett. He's like the safety range officer here. They leave Blackburn with Eversman because like they don't know what to do with him. It's like, oh, you need to go see the captain. It's like, well, we don't know where he is, so we're still leaving him with you. And then we cut to...
Yeah, it becomes a thing. It's like, well, he's not here. It's like, well, can I just leave him with you?
Yeah.
It's like, that seems so weird, and it's like probably actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
Because everything's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like places where I've had to check in, it's always a surprise. Like, oh, we got a new person, and they're here now. It's like, why is this... And then it's like, all right, where do I sit or stand? It's like, you have no idea. Nobody, on both ends, nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah. People are here in this people-based organization. What black magic is this? Did you sprout from the earth? Your appearance, it vexes me so.
I mean, I suppose it would be like kind of like weird to be like checking in with this unit in the middle of an operation overseas. That does seem kind of weird and unexpected. You figure if they get backup, it would just be, a whole nother like regiment coming in,
Yeah.
rather than like we added one guy from boot camp to your squad.
Here you go. This is that backup you requested.
All the 18-year-olds you can handle.
Yeah.
So we cut to night and Hoot like shot a boar or something, and so they're having a barbecue.
An impromptu, and what we find out later is an illicit barbecue. Not supposed to do this for reasons.
Yeah, because here we have
like I said, you're literally in a Hieronymus Bosch painting, but don't have any fun or anything. Yeah. Might break discipline.
Well, Captain Steele comes up, who's played by it's one of your favorite actors.
Oh, Jason Isaacs. Yeah,
Jason Isaacs. He's the like no nonsense captain that wants everything run by the book.
He's the captain from the Mirror Universe.
Well, no, here he wants all rules to be followed. He's that dick. So
yeah, oh yeah.
Anybody he's trying to order around the Delta Force guys, they're like, "Cool story, bro." Yeah. To their superior.
Yeah, which seems weird if you don't know what's going on. You got to read a book to understand. Like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, presumably, they're presumably they're in the danger zone. They're out in the field. You would say they're in an engagement thing, which a lot of that like formality and stuff would go by the wayside because it's unnecessary in a dangerous situation. It's like, yeah, let's salute officers. Let's just tell the enemy who to shoot. Yeah, it's like,
this is who you shoot at. Shoot this guy. Wear your insignia, like bright, shiny insignia on your helmet or whatever, so they know where to aim the sniper rifle.
So, but yeah, Sergeant Hoot just kind of laughs at him and goes about his business because he's Delta Force, so he can do that.
Doesn't he say something to him like that's a loaded weapon?
Oh yeah, he points out, yeah, it's unsafe, and he says, "Yeah, this is my safety here," and he points to the trigger. But yeah, that is a big no-no. But I guess Delta Force guys, so he can do what he wants.
They typically don't screw up with their weapons. I think they train them well enough.
Yeah, but it's easy to trip on things and trigger get pulled.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel happy with some dude walking around with a loaded machine gun either. I wouldn't fill me with optimism.
I mean, at least it has a gun on him. It's not just somewhere unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Then they cut to it's like the barracks at night, and basically like they're running through all like the different kinds of people in the airborne here, and all the, kind of like all the different jokers and like little societies that happen within it. We have one guy who like I don't even remember who he is later on. He's making fun of Captain Steele. He's mimicking him and stuff like that, who then like he gets made fun of later. And I don't even remember who this guy is later on in the movie, or if he even shows up.
Oh, he does. I think he gets killed.
Yeah, but I just don't remember him in the firefights at all.
No, so, I don't need. That's one of the problems with this movie is like everyone just kind of smears together.
Yeah,
which kind of like maybe is legitimate because
when everyone has the same uniform and haircut, it makes sense.
And people are shooting at you. It's like I can't remember your name.
Yeah,
but someone's shooting at my head, so of course I can't.
Here you learn that they call the Somalians skinnies.
Yes.
Which I don't know. Some trivia I read said that was attributed to Starship Troopers rather than just them making fun of starving people.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. I thought it was just them making fun of starving people.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a cover. I think they're just making fun of starving people. So. And then there's a guy. He's like, they're watching The Jerk, and then there's a guy named Beals. He comes up. He's like, "Oh, this scene's so funny," and it's a scene where like a sniper's shooting at
oil cans.
Yeah. And then the scene is so funny. This guy has a seizure.
Yeah, I mean that is a funny scene. I didn't think it was that funny. Now if they're watching like the original Airplane, it's like there's stuff in there that would give me a seizure.
We cut to it's 5:45 a.m. Sunday, October 3rd. Beals is being sent home because they found out he's like epileptic. So Everman's gonna have to lead Beale's platoon, I think, or whatever. Here they call them chalks, which I didn't know what that meant. That's basically like all the people are getting loaded up in a Blackhawk. That's like a chalk.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the book explains what the origin of that is and why.
the trivia I read said something about like in like the World War II when you're dropping guys out of airplanes that they like wrote their names on the back in chalk or something
Yep.
like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was I think it was a different unit size because it was just based on how many people you could fit in a helicopter versus
Yeah,
like the usual loadout. Because Rangers are considered like very light, fast infantry attack. It's like they
yeah,
don't do like tanks and stuff.
no.
They just run around with heavy weapons.
Um, well, like in the Marines, like we usually call something like we'd have like you're doing like shooting range stuff, and you have like you have a line of people, and then you have like multiple lines of people to do like in order of like to do the firing range, and or shooting range, um, and so we call those sticks. So I didn't know. So I assumed that was kind of what was going on here. It's like, oh, it's just their version of stick, which they also have their version of oorah, which is hua,
Okay.
which is a poor imitation, but whatever. Um, which they'll say here once, it's kind of like an exclamation point. It's like it's like y'all heard that, huh? Like, huh?
Yeah, but in the like the translation or in the subtitles, sometimes it looks like huh.
Yeah,
And sometimes it doesn't. But these I don't know if these are AI generated. I don't know if you saw this on the subtitles though, because sometimes when the Somalians would say something, it would say combatant, militiaman, or sand person. That would be the credit. I'm not making it up. Watch it on Netflix. It's there. Like stand person, I was waiting to see someone get off a panther and be like, oh, it's like, what the hell is a sand person? But see, that's me
they walk in
innocently
single
watching.
files that hide their numbers.
Yeah, I was waiting for Obi-Wan to show. Well, Obi-Wan was
He
in
does,
it.
yeah, he does, yeah. It shows up.
What if he just suddenly like broke character? Like, Somalians walk in single file to hide their numbers.
Which I guess this would have been post the new Star Wars movie, so everyone would know
It was
about it.
just like I said. I don't know like how some of the subtitles because I've seen weird assignations for characters.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming these are getting to like computer generated at this point. But the one where it said
Maybe.
"sand person" is like that's amazing. And I'm just innocently assuming like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a Star Wars reference. It's probably like super racist or something. But it's like, oh, okay. Because there's another sand thing that they call people. Look it up. But yeah, but I'm thinking like Star Wars.
Yes, you'll beg for that skinnies is what they call
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, wow, that's terrible. They're calling them that. It's like, well, there's some other words.
um yeah, I don't because I know Netflix is big on subtitle stuff because you can get subtitles for basically every country in the world for the movies. So I'm not sure if they're generating their own stuff for that because obviously, this would have subtitle generated for the DVD that they made for this, but they probably aren't getting that information, which is probably why you never get audio commentaries on streaming services.
Yeah.
So, um, then we cut to Holiday Road, Baccarat Market, Adid's militia stronghold. There's a warlord meeting going on. So yeah, then we cut to like kind of the planning of the meeting of like what they're gonna do to capture these guys, and so the Rangers want to take all these guys in. So they work on a plan to capture Adid and his men. Which again, they show him like walking in there, but you never actually know like is any of them Adid, and then turns out no, none of them was Adid.
Yeah.
Here we get how do you say Seljeko Advanya back for a Ridley Scott movie because we last saw him in White Squall.
Yeah. I don't never really looked up how to pronounce his name. He's just to me he's that guy.
Yeah. Well, here's like I don't know. It's interesting because like I guess. Well, also they got Glenn Morshower here as a lieutenant colonel. I didn't get his name, but like I know this guy because he was in 24. Like if you know
Yeah.
him from anything, he was in 24. He's like the Secret Service guy for for President Palmer.
Yep. He was also in The Crazies, is the guy they interrogated.
Oh,
And we can't, yeah, and Jamie Lannister was in this.
oh, he
It was
was.
weird to
Oh,
see
oh,
him.
yeah.
Yeah, that Nikolaj Coster-Waldau.
Okay.
He was one of the in the command staff guys. He was like
Oh,
a
okay.
sergeant.
But like, if Evniak here and Morshauer, they play like like kind of higher up guys who like I thought like when they left the scene, it's like all right, there's your plan, we're gone now. I didn't realize like they're hovering in a helicopter like pretty much the entire this entire operation, which I didn't realize until watching this movie that what was going on. They're not engaging; they're just like hovering around and trying to provide, like go down this street, but of course every street is blocked and they can't tell from the sky. Um,
Yep, those are they're real guys too. Yeah, I have their pictures on here.
yeah, pretty much everyone in this movie is real except for the Grimes characters. They changed the name of the guy because the guy who's mostly based on uh was because a convicted child molester, so they kind of wanted to mix that out of here.
Oops, yeah. Yeah. Don't want that Ewan McGregor to be playing a pedophile.
Then we get McKnight, played by Tom Sizemore. He's like goes for a smoke, and those kind of like intelligent officers come up and it's like, "Hey, what's on your mind?" And he voices everything that's wrong with the situation. Where it's like, no Spectre gunships, no, it's a daylight attack. The enemy forces are full of drugs at this time, and they're also close to like where Adid's forces can mount a counterattack. So, I don't know if this guy had those thoughts before this happened, or if this is just like this we need a character to tell the audience like how this can all go wrong.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was probably. I know in the book they talked about the people chewing cat all day. It's called cat, K-A-T. It's like a low-level cocaine
Yeah.
because it's not really processed. So like, because I guess if you processed it, it would be like insane. But yeah, they just chew it all day, and it's full of sugar too. So all their teeth are rotted out as a result of it. But yeah, it'll make you good and like borderline. That's what I said. Like these forces they were fighting, the Somalians, like they had little regard for their safety, which made them extra dangerous. And it's like, yeah, they were blasted out of their mind on cat, so which they knew was a problem with those guys because they did that. Because interestingly, like in Islam, like you're not supposed to drink alcohol, but like any drugs like that, like that's fine. Nothing against it, just nothing that's like fermented, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you want to like pull out a needle and shoot heroin, it's like cool.
Yeah, and presumably like these are the guys on top of the situation, and still it's like, well, life looks like it sucks for them as well. So yeah, what are you gonna do? Is like, might as well chew drugs all day.
Yeah.
And we cut to there was a guy who's taping a cross on top of his taxi, so this is like one of their informants. Then we cut to Grimes is obsessing over coffee, and he's like telling like how like that's all he did in Desert Storm was make coffee.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, he is a ranger, he trained to do this, and he's like, which is a great like character setup for him because he has like the most character development where it's like, this is like the audience surrogate. It's like of like somebody who like, it's like, oh, I guess I couldn't go to war, and they're like, you're going to war. I was like, what? So, then there's another guy there. As he's talking, he's got a broken arm, and so because that guy has a broken arm, Grimes gets called up to go do the operation. Which to his surprise and discomfort, although he says things like, "Yeah, just this, like, cause yeah, it's just what you wanted, right?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and you can just hear the doubt in his voice. So, and so yeah, let's see here. Yeah, everyone starts to move out, but everyone's like preparing in different ways. There's bunches of like you have the Delta Force guys are like taping like their blood types to their boot, to which one guy's like, it's like, no, that's smart in case like you get knocked out, they know what the blood to give you, and then the other guy's like, no, that's bad luck. It's like can't win for trying.
Yeah, it's almost, it becomes like sailors at sea. It's like, no, it's a curse to do that. Whistle on deck. It's like, why not? It's like, because it's bad luck. Like, why? It's like, don't ask.
You're planning for failure. Well, yeah. Why have directions to build a build some furniture when you can just like pretend to know how to put it together and it all falls apart? um, yeah. Then one guy's like, he takes the back plate out of his plate carrier because like, yeah, I don't get planned to get shot in the back. One guy's like, we're not going to be out there long. We don't need water. We don't need night vision because it's going to be short and sweet. Uh, I'm sure all this stuff happened, but
Mm.
me, I would take everything because that's just what I did. um, Not to say
Well,
like I was
I'm
in
definitely gonna
engagement. No, I
wear
was
like as
never in
much.
an engagement or anything like that. It's just whenever like there's always times where you got to be somewhere for something, and then everyone just like balks at like all you need's this, and then of course they want more, and so I just brought everything just in case, and then I'd have to let the people who were like didn't bring anything, I'd have to share to make sure we can all pretend that this is a functioning company.
Yeah, I would just imagine like if I had to do something like that, it's like I'm bringing all the armor shit, even though it sucks and it weighs a lot. It's like going into a city where they're handing out AK-47s in the middle of the street. Probably a good idea to wear as much armor as you can.
Yeah. So that'd be in Act 1 because like they got the plan, they're gonna move in there. So we have Act 2, which from here on out is basically just gonna be one long action sequence. And so there's probably I'm not sure how much there's gonna be like, oh, what are we gonna read into this movie? It's just gonna be me listing a bunch of action things that happen. Maybe I'll forget some stuff because there is a bunch of like crazy details about this whole engagement that's like unbelievable. And it's like there's even stuff in like the like Ridley Scott said that, like they didn't include it from the book because he thought even though it was a real thing that happened, it would be too unbelievable.
Yeah, no one's gonna believe that.
So it's 2:29. A helicopter is following the cross taxi. Here they established like the Joint Operations Center, where this is where General Garrison is at, and he's kind of like, you know, planning everything out. And it's kind of you cut back here, and there's really like you cut back to, and you have like that overhead footage that's in like night vision, and like you you show the helicopters crashing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They cut to the States for like a moment because the guy's like leaving a message to his wife back at home, which I think she's like French or something. I guess this is actually like Ridley Scott's wife.
Oh, okay.
At the time, they said they married in 2015. I don't know if they're still married.
Yep, still married.
We got Hoot here. He's talking to Eversman. He's like he's trying to, because like everyone's like never done this before, so they don't know what to do, and he just tells them just watch your corner and get all your men back alive. So that's the best advice he can offer them. We got Abdi, the taxi driver, is confused and scared about where Adid is, what building he's in, because he doesn't want to get close to the building where all the militia guys are. Like, they're gonna kill me. He's like, no, get in closer. So then he gets in closer, and then like he opens up the hood, and like it starts like, overheating, which that's like, I'm not, they don't show like the mechanism to do that or anything, but that's the go signal. Is like, they're popping smoke from the burning taxi. And here they say all QRF out of the airspace, which usually QRF means quick reaction force, but I'm not sure what it means here because it seems like QRF is just like the observers, but I don't know. So, so the observers leave. Then we got the raid starts. This is like a super cool shot of like all the Black Hawk helicopters and like the Blackbird, the smaller kind of nimbler helicopters that have a bunch of like 50 cals on it and stuff like that, or they have the miniguns on it and rockets.
The MH6 observance helicopter. According to Wikipedia, also nicknamed the Killer Egg.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, like as it's flying over the beach here, and like, yeah, this is just a really cool shot. It's very, very Apocalypse Now reminiscent.
Yes.
And they get to use Black Hawk helicopters. I think the Army let them use 4 Black Hawk helicopters for this movie. So, and the Black Hawk,
they can spare them. They only got like 7,000 of them. I
which
think it's like the third most common helicopter in the world or some
oh
crazy shit
yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I know. Like this movie, even the titular name of it is like two helicopters going down. But if you look up the development of the Black Hawk helicopter and like what it is, it's actually an amazing helicopter.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, nothing functions well when you shove a rocket into its engine, no matter how good it is. It's not.
Well, that's something I was thinking of. Is like, hovering targets. Like, I think about because like, yeah, I know like when the shit goes down, like nobody's really paying attention to stuff. But like, they're always like, know your target, what lies beyond. So it's like, make sure what you're shooting at gets shot, and make sure that like if there's something behind it you don't want shot, then you can't shoot at it. Whereas if you're shooting at a helicopter, you're shooting into the sky. So it doesn't matter. So you can kind of just unload on a helicopter with no recourse other
Yeah.
than like what it can defend against you, which here they have miniguns on the side that will tear you up. But helicopters, a pretty easy target to engage in terms of like, should I be shooting at this thing because I might hit something else? It's like, nope, put it up in the sky.
Yep. It's you're not. Yeah. It's fire away.
But usually when the other team has a helicopter, it means they have a lot of other cool stuff too. So, um, so yeah, as like they fly over there, like they start burning tires. There's a bunch of there's like a series of like kids with cell phones that are waking up other people with cell phones or tossing off cell phones, and so basically all of Adid's men are like ready to go, and then the tire fires are also just a big signal. Like it's like, oh, these people are pretty organized. It's like this is supposed to be a secret raid, and already it's blown. So it's like they're already flying into an ambush. That's kind of how they set it up here.
Yeah, they're using it's like third world. It's like
Yeah.
insurgent intel.
Yeah.
It's like just a bunch of phones. Like the main guy's just holding it to the sky,
Yeah.
so you can hear like the helicopters. It's like,
Yep.
okay, well, we know helicopters are coming. Like we don't need to like have a radar thing and tell us like distance, space, and time. We just know they're coming.
So we got touchdown at 3:42. That's when the people start like stepping out of the helicopters to go get the warlords out. The extraction team starts engaging, so they shoot some people. These are mostly Delta Force guys. I think it's all Delta Force guys going in to grab these people. And then we have some Rangers and the Blackhawks. They start roping down. And then also you got Tom Sizemore's like as McKnight, like he's got like a convoy. Like they pull up because like the special forces guys are gonna go into this building, get the people out. Convoy's gonna come in. They're gonna shove all the people in those Humvees, and then they're gonna get out of there. That's the whole plan.
Right.
And then the Rangers coming out of the Blackhawks, they're just kind of like holding down. They're just support. I don't know how they were supposed to be extracted. I don't know if they're supposed to like hop back in that Blackhawk or get on these other Humvees. I'm not sure. I think the plan was to go.
Clear. I'm assuming they were getting on the Humvees
Yeah.
to provide like protection to the guys bringing the people out.
Yeah, I believe so because there's like the two machine gunners later on that get kind of like left behind. That seemed like they I think they say like did the convoy leave us? So I think they were supposed to go with the convoy. Then
I thought it was endearing that one of them was like it was like the other guy from besides Ewan McGregor, the other guy from what was it?
Train Spotting.
Train Spotting was like was well cast in that role as just kind of this strange looking guy that.
And then his foil and his other half is Tom Hardy.
Yeah. Yeah, those guys are definitely like an Abbott and Costello, like almost comic relief in this movie.
Oh yeah, they're. I said I wrote them like as I described them as C-3PO and R2-D2 later on. So,
yeah.
Yeah, because in a movie where you have basically almost no levity, like when those guys are around, it makes you kind of happy, even though like their situation is dire and upsetting. But at least they're just kind of funny.
Right.
And a bunch of English guys, it's got English and a Scottish guy doing American accents, doing like Texas accents or whatever. So,
Yeah, and they kind of got away from it because it's like their hearing was damaged,
yeah.
and so they could like talk kind of weird. It's like, oh well, yeah, they can't understand. They can't hear their voices.
Blackburn gets on the rope, and then here an RPG gets fired, and the Blackhawk like jukes away from the RPG, and then like Blackburn misses the rope, and then just falls all the way to the ground onto his back. Which I wrote to his death. Like I always assumed the other times I've seen this movie that he was dead the whole time, but no, he survives this, as
Yeah,
far as I know. So it's just Orlando Bloom is now out of the movie, and it's like and like he was big at this time because Lord of the Rings was out, so it's like to have this guy just kind of like almost immediately be taken out of the movie. He's like, oh, he's not going to fight or anything. It's like, no, that's the point. It's like it doesn't matter how much of a badass you are or anything like that. Like something stupid like this can happen, and you're out of the fight, and it's nobody's fault. Um,
that was a cool scene though when they like saw the guys like shouldering the RPG. And it's like, hang on, and they're just gonna kick the helicopter in the ass a little bit so it gets just enough out of the way that the RPG flies by. It's like,
yeah.
well, that's actually kind of a cool scene.
Yeah, and there's multiple times in movies where like you have the Blackhawk like juke out RPGs, which to the point where it's like, was that in the book? Like, how many times how how many times are Blackhawks dodging RPGs
Oh,
through the years?
the guys in the book that were talking like gave witness testimonies. Like they were like, these guys had an unlimited they had like a stadium full of like RPG 6s, or I don't know what, I think it was RPG 6s.
Yeah,
It's like we'd never seen something. They would fly because half time you wouldn't know to avoid them
yeah,
because they'd fly through the air. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of those fired like even videos. I've never seen one
yeah,
in real life, of course, but they're not easy to like control because it's just kind of like this thing explodes off your shoulder. And to like fire it at a tank at 50 yards is like, oh, that seems reasonable. To fire it at something moving through the air, especially in real life under pressure, it's like they said in the book, it's like, oh, these things were just going off everywhere. And because it's like a dumb bomb, it's like you don't like fire off flares or something and distract it. It's just a line of sight weapon.
yeah.
But these guys were just shooting the hell out of them. And a lot of them were getting knocked on their. In the book, they said a lot of them would just fall over on their ass when they fired them because they just weren't big enough to handle the recoil of them. So I guess
What?
one of the problems with the RPG is they weren't very effective at, like the Law rocket. Like guys just fire that and it just and
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Well,
You
yeah,
don't
it's
want to stand
technically
behind
supposed to
it.
recoilless.
Yeah, but the RPG is not recoilless. It'll kick you in
Oh.
the ass, I guess,
Well, I know,
and
like
also
I've seen
depending
one
on what
fired
kind
in
of head
slow
you have.
motion. Like it has to like basically kick the rocket away because it also has like these giant wings that expand that you don't
Mm-hmm.
like that you don't ever really see unless you see it in slow motion. And so once it gets far enough away from like the person, then it'll ignite and fire away.
Yeah.
Which I guess what makes it like reloadable rather than the Law rocket where it's like one and done.
Because like the Law rocket and there's another anti-personnel rocket we have that operates almost like a recoilless rifle, where it's just like a through thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like an RPG, it's like and the Russians love that, by the way. A lot of their like that big model I built of that nuclear, the was it the Topol 7 or whatever. Like when that thing goes up and deploys, like no, there's a big charge that separates it. And it's like boom, and then the missile hangs in the air for like a second, and it starts to come back, and then the main rocket launches.
Yeah.
Russians love doing that. We don't do that so much. They've really got it. Like they have stuff where it's like, oh, it's an anti-air rocket, and they're just firing it straight up. It's like, what the hell is they doing? Because it'll pop, it'll come out of the thing, and then there'll be some charge that kicks it sideways, and then it takes off through the air. It looks really cool. I guess that there's a high failure rate with doing it that way. They're like, no, it's better just to shoot it straight at something rather than like bash the electronics inside around with a sledgehammer and then like, hell, there it goes. But I don't know. I don't work on these things designed to
I
more shoot
don't know.
them.
The javelin does the high arc thing, so
Well, Javelin does it because that's where the armor is the thinnest.
yeah, yeah,
But they decided to make it. It was like, oh, it's easier to have psychologically for the guy to aim straight at it and then let the javelin do its javelin thing, rather than like, no, just kind of wing it in like a mortar. It's like, no, it'll just do that on its own. Because they actually originally, as conceived, it was going to be like almost like a mortar fired rocket, where it's like, oh, you line it up through the glass here, but it's really firing over your head. And then they just made it more like, no, it just does this automatically. We're gonna cut the human out of it because it was easier to, train people quickly. Because like we've learned with fighter aircraft, if you create a weapon system that's so hard, it takes like a guy with a genius level IQ and a PhD 6 years to use it effectively. And then those things start getting shot down. It's like, oh, we're losing competency very quickly because like, well, all our PhD geniuses that are willing to take on this risk, it's like we're running out of them very quickly and they're hard to replace. That's why like submarine officers are like, yeah, let him do whatever he wants to, because he's super hard. The hardest guy to replace are people that are qualified on submarines. It's like, oh, he got 7 DUIs. Cool. Just find this. We're going to not talk about it.
Yeah, he's not operating the sub. He's telling someone else to operate.
Yeah, he's fine.
How much beer can he find in a submarine?
Yeah. Oh, he's got a 160 IQ. You know how hard those are to come by? No, this guy's fine. What, is he murdering people yet? It's like, no. Okay, cool. He's fine.
Oh, is he murdering innocent people?
Well, yeah. Yeah, when it's time to murder and turn that key, he's going to murder people. But until then, he's our bad guy.
We got the Chalk is returning fire, and they're trying to get Blackburn out of there. The prisoners are getting extracted to the Humvees. We got Blackhawks are providing minigun covering fire, which always seems like crazy. That's like, oh, I guess it seemed like, I don't know. It seems like for how big that thing is, like, wouldn't you put more weapons on it? But like, 2 chain guns seems like plenty too. So
yeah, it's like, imagine the weight of that. Imagine the pilot having to constantly adjust the throttle for every like 10 seconds they're on though. Because it's like, how many pounds have they lost in 10 seconds of just wah! You can't even tell the difference between one shot to the other. It's like, they must constantly be feathering that throttle. I'm totally guessing. I don't know, but it's like, yeah, they're going through ammo like crazy.
And then we cut to McKnight's Humvee, and Sergeant Pila, who is on the 50 cal, like takes a bullet and just dies immediately. So this is like the first death of one of the Rangers.
Yeah, like his neck gets blown out.
Yeah,
because at first I was like, check him out, and then they just look at him. It's like, oh yeah, he's dead. Okay,
yeah,
it's like there's no coming back from that.
Yeah, basically like it hit the spinal column and like the T column, and like once you hit that, it's like there's no recovering from that. It's like all your involuntary functions will cease to exist, and there's
your heart's not working or anything.
That's why, like, if you see targets, they'll have a T around here. It's like if you hit that T, they're not coming back from that.
Yeah.
Now around the T, you can get shot in those things and surprisingly still live.
But the prime target for the M4, M16, whatever, is the pelvic girdle, because that's the corpse.
Yeah, that's the easiest to hit, and it creates a hassle for the other people.
Which is how Stoner sold the 223 5.56 round. It's like, oh yeah, these don't blow people to bits; they just wound them grievously. You have to carry them off the field, and the guy can carry 3 times as much ammo for the same displacement. It's like, yeah, we're in.
Well, there's a in the table 2 shooting qualification, the Marines, you have 3 boxes. You have like the circle box for the chest, you have the T box for the head, and you have the pelvic girdle, which is more like this octagon or septagon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And so it's like the biggest target. And there's sometimes where you gotta do like the failure drill, where it's like 2 to the chest, and you can do 1 to the head, or you can do 1 to the pelvic girdle for the same amount of points. And it's like, well, obviously shoot the girdle because that's an easy score.
Yeah, a lot bigger. The head's small; it moves around a lot. pelvis, no matter how much it's moving, it stays relatively within the same space. It's weird. I've read
Yeah.
way too many books about that shit for someone who has never like used guns
Well,
in combat. It's like, oh, this is
well, that's
interesting.
also a football thing. That's what they say, like hips don't lie, because like
Yep.
like someone like jukes you out, like you're kind of watching their head and assuming they're gonna go somewhere. But if you watch their pelvis, that's gonna tell you where they're gonna go.
Yeah, and you can freak them out. It's like that dude's staring at my crotch the whole time. Why is this dude staring at my crotch? Does he think I'm into something? I'm not into that. He's staring at my crotch. It's like you're just psyching them out in
Yeah.
two ways. This guy's
Uh,
staring at my balls again.
then we cut to Elvis's Blackhawk takes an RPG to the tail rotor, and then it starts to crash land. They don't follow the sky. They do. It starts spinning, which I'm not sure if that's necessarily because the tail rotor's gone or if it's going through its auto rotation, which is what you do to try to cushion the fall of a helicopter so it doesn't just fall straight out of the sky. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. If you want to like get like a real good helicopter podcast is what's
Bill
the
Burr.
comedian's name? Yeah, listen to Bill Burr talk about. He'll explain that because I don't know how helicopters work. I don't know what the little thing on the back does. The little propeller on the back. I think it stabilizes it so it doesn't just
No,
spin in
yeah.
circles.
If you just have if you just had the one blade, the helicopter would just spin. So that
Isn't that why the Russians have a tailless one but with two rotors or something?
yeah,
Like,
they got two rotors that
shit like that.
it
Okay.
counter rotates, so it keeps like they counter rotate so it keeps it even, so it's not
It
spinning.
cancels out the spin.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So that's what
I would get seasick just being in that thing, knowing that was going on. It's like, oh, I feel weird now inside. I feel icky inside. But it seems like twice as many like big surfaces to shoot at. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, actually, helicopters are just big targets.
Yeah.
Even the what's the scary ones? The Apaches.
Apache. Yeah.
Yeah, the only advantage that has, you won't see it coming until it's already like raining fire on you. But yeah, you can shoot that down fairly effectively with one of these crazy RPG things too. Especially if you fire like 300 at it, like you're bound to hit it once.
Well, that's what you're gonna have to do because it's also somebody in the sky that can literally has a video game on their head that can just shoot you down from a mile away.
Yeah, yeah, that's why the Apaches are scary. But it's like the 300. It's like our RPGs will blot out the sun. You know? Gonna fire so many of these damn things. I don't even know what an RPG costs a shot. That's when I want to do that Charlie Wilson's War math of like how much did this really cost?
Well, that's the thing with Soviet stuff is that it doesn't no matter the cost, they just produce so much of it that it's just around.
Well, that's the problem with fighting commies. It's like, well, they've seized the means of production, so it has no value. And that's why when Americans show up, it's like, we're going to fight math war. It's like, against communists? They don't care. They'll just keep building it. It's like it doesn't have any meaning.
Well, because like
no meaning. That's the true danger of communism.
Well, like the AK-47, like it had like it's so ubiquitous with like third world countries and like you say, oh, poor countries and their army has AK-47s. It must be the cheapest weapon available. But when you get into the economics of actually like building an AK-47, it's like it's as expensive as an M16.
Yeah, it does the same thing, so it has to have that cost structure. But the thing is, like, I remember when me and one of my friends we got AK-47s. It's like we didn't know anything about them, and it's like we just have these AK-47s. It's like we should probably, like, they were covered with like grease that was like it was making our hands itch. It's like, okay, we got to get this shit off. Whatever this is. Found out it was Cosmoline later.
Oh, yeah, Cosmoline. Yeah.
But I was like, you got to remember, I was like 18 when I got one of these things, and it was like, I've never taken a gun apart before. I don't know how that works. And you know what? Damn it. We figured it out, and it worked. We took it apart, a couple of idiots, in like a shed, clean these AK-47s, and it's like, oh, there's like gun oil. It's like, well, do you have any gun oil? No. Where can we get on gun oil? And it was like $5 a can. It's like, what about like motor oil? Like, yeah, that's a lubricant. And we put these things back together and went out in the woods. Like, pop, pop, pop. I mean, they were semi-automatic, but it's like they worked. I don't
Yeah.
even know if we put them back together right, but it's like we must have because they didn't fail. They continued to shoot, and it's like that's the beauty of that. When I got my AR-15, it was like I had to watch a video. It's like, oh, this is how you take it apart, and it is simple
Yeah.
once you learn how to do it. It's like, yeah, it's not that hard, but you do have to watch a video where the AK-47. It's like, hey, this reciprocating thing, like let's pull this out, and this must connect to this, and we got this weird like I don't know how you describe it. It's like a wire, but it wraps around the trigger. That like, oh, if you don't wrap it around 3 times, the trigger doesn't return. So it's got to be 3 times. Okay, now the trigger returns. It's just like it's made for you to figure it out,
Yeah.
and you feel really cool at the end of it. Like I made this work. Now I'm going to go fight the Americans like a lunatic because I was like, I made this work. I can obviously defeat like the most powerful army in the world now. It didn't work out for him, but you know.
And also, you know, it's like stamped metal because you'd also assume like, oh, this is cheap. It's like, no, it's just kind of it is cheaper for production. And they did used to make milled AK-47s, but it's like but we can make them way faster if we stamp them.
Yeah.
And but like you know that barrel is still like basically $1,000 barrel. Like they didn't waste. They didn't cheap out on the barrel.
No, because that's the one thing that had to last.
Yeah.
And they also chrome the shit out of it.
Yeah.
You ever seen the chrome in those? Like get a bore scope in an old AK-47.
Yeah.
It's like the chrome is like it's like uneven. It's like that's why they're way less accurate than like an M4 or something. Like they're not even close, but they're just so hard hitting and reliable. It doesn't matter. It's just like just shoot 3 times as many rounds. You'll hit them eventually. And the barrels don't overheat. It's kind of weird. I mean, they do if you're like doing crazy stuff, but for something that just like
if you're doing
off the shelf, like no special modifications, like you can use the hell out of it. And the wood furniture is cool too. It's so easy to replace. It's but you can take it off. It's like a little tiny screw, but once it's locked in, it's like it's for the next 50 years that'll work. But just loosen that screw like 3 turns, it just all falls off. All the wood comes off. And then you can put plastic on it, which I did. But I had a Vector, so I don't know, like, because that's the South African variant, because you can't really get the Russian ones here because, you know, Putin or whatever.
Well, you can as like a parts kit or whatever, but...
Yeah, I just wanted one that was... And I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it, but it was fun. I mean, I felt like I learned something. Like it was something fun to do when you were 18. It's like, hey, can I have an AK-47? Yes, here. How much is it? $200. Great.
Oh man, that'd be a steal nowadays.
Oh yeah, it was crazy back then. It's like, can I get some bullets for it? It's like, well, there's this like steel shit from China. It's like, does that work? Cool, yeah. How much for 500 bullets? $20. And it came in like a sardine can. It just opened up. I was like, do I need to clean these? They're covered with grease. No, that lubricates the gun. Cool. That was, and then I sold that thing for like $500 or something. I actually didn't like it a whole lot. It was fun initially, but then you realize it's like, this is just kind of a crappy clatter, or how would you say it? It just kind of clatters around a little bit. You know?
It's like not.
It's not like my Rock River where it's like that's still a cool gun to shoot like that. It's like it's an AR-15.
It doesn't have tight tolerances. It's got loose tolerances, dude.
Yeah, no, it just like I said, it rattles around a lot. Never jammed or stopped firing, but sometimes the bullets, like the primers, were just dead. Those cheap Chinese ones or whatever. So you just always have to rack it back, and it's like because you could see where the primer was hit, and like it's just like it just didn't go off. And then you realize later as an adult, it's like, that was probably kind of scary. Just rack that immediately because it could have exploded at any time. It's a bunch of third world shit, and you don't know what it is. So,
okay. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know if like the Black Hawk crashing is like if it's rotating like that because the tail rotor's gone, or if like they're just going into a crash sequence to try to make it more survivable. Because that is one of the things about the Black Hawk. It's one of the most survivable helicopters to crash in, which that is very hard to survive a helicopter crash. Because like a plane crash, it's like that's a hard thing too. But the thing about a plane is if you have wings, you can still glide it. Thing about a helicopter, it's like just jumping off a building when you crash land it.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna be like 3 inches shorter if you get out of that thing. And also,
um,
there's like spinning turbine engines and blades, and those have 2 engines in them. Also,
yeah. Um, but yeah, this is where we get the call of Black Hawk Down, the titular call. And then the general's like sending in a group to try to secure the crash site. We get back to one of the Humvee units. Captain Steele is sending in 2-5 to the crash site. That is Everman's squad. Um, Here we get the two guys. We get Twombly and Tom Hardy, who plays I think it's Nelson. No, Tom Hardy is Twombly. Nelson is the other guy. They get left behind holding down a corner. Like I think Twombly has a M249, and then Nelson has an M50 machine gun. So they're just so they got the ammo to hold things down. um, then we got to there's a guy that was in the Black Hawk, and he's holding off people. Like this is one of the special forces guys, because he has like an aim point red dot on his, so it's like, oh okay, that's he's a special forces guy. So two, but yeah, I think both the pilots are dead. I'm not sure who else is in the helicopter, if he's the only one that survived the crash. And I can't remember, like I'm not sure if this wasn't there one guy like kind of hanging off the side of the helicopter as it's crashing.
yeah, I remember there was.
Was it the special forces guy, or was it somebody else that just died? Or
I
can't
don't
remember.
know if that was one of the crew guys or the special forces guy. I'm not sure.
Okay, or I should say Delta, I guess. I mean Delta is special forces, but
Yeah.
So 2-5 is pushing towards where they think the chopper is, because they don't necessarily know where it is. Um, then we got one ranger like hides in a house to like escape enemy fire, and then like he moves through the house, and then he like slips out the back, and then like as he's like walks out, he slips and falls, and there's like a child soldier that like tries to shoot at him, and then shoots who's like I presume it was his dad, and kills him, and then he just puts down his gun and runs over and hugs the guy as he's dead. So that's like a weird little moment. It's like, oh shit. It's like, where you kind of feel for the bad guys necessarily. It's like, that's just
Yeah,
a
he
kid.
chooses not to shoot the kid in the back.
Yeah. um and then we cut to like one of the one of the Humvee convoys make it back to base to drop off all the guys they captured. And then we got 2-5 show up at the Black Hawk, and then there's a Blackbird lands there as well, which I wrote at first. I wrote like they throw some of the crew into the Blackbird and take off, but they don't. Like they just kind of like one of the Delta Force guys like, all right, it's secured. He gives them with them, and then he hops back in the Blackbird, and they just take off and leave. They don't put the wounded in the Blackbird. So I'm not sure how much weight they can carry in those little things. It is a very small helicopter, so it mostly just provides like observation and air support. So yeah, they get the wounded out of the Black Hawk, although they can't get the pilots, because like the front end of the helicopter is just buried in the ground, and they can't get them out. Also, here we cut to like some guy, there's an explosion, and then some guy gets just blown in half. Which here is where it's like, yeah, they just cut to him. It's like, oh yeah, he's just his whole half his body's missing. This is a change from the book, because in the book he's like still alive, but like he's like held together by his spine. He's basically like, it's like his midsection is just gone, but his spine's still holding to his legs and all that stuff. And they're like, nobody's gonna believe that. So, and that would probably be too horrific. So they didn't make that. They didn't transition that over from the book. They just had him get blown in half.
Yeah, that was a weird, dark scene.
And then of course they also cut to the guy who, because they're taking fire, and like the guy who didn't wear the back plate gets shot in the back. So,
Yeah.
and it's not because he's running away; it's because all the people on the roof are shooting down at them. So he's basically like covered at all angles, and so yeah, like his back got exposed for a moment, and he got shot in the back and killed, presumably, I guess. Um, then we cut back to Nelson and Twombly, who like they figure out that they've been left behind, so they start to move to where they think the convoy is going to be. And this is also where like Nelson's yelling at Twombly, I was like, "Hey, don't fire that thing so close to me, like I'm losing my hearing." And then we just immediately like somebody pulls up and like he comically just like fires the machine gun like right in front of his head. And at first he's like, hey, stop that!" And then he like fires again. And then we have it where he's like, where like Twombly's trying to tell Nelson what to do, and he's like, "What?" And so now he's like, okay, now he's deaf for the rest of the thing. And like yeah, so yeah, he comically loses his hearing, and he makes a lot of weird like things where he's like doing like weird jaw stuff, where it's like it seems weird. It's like, does he have a concussion? Why is he doing that? It's like, oh no, he lost his hearing. He's like trying to do weird things to see if he can get his hearing back.
Yeah, he's like trying to clear his sinuses or something.
Yeah, yeah. And then we cut to another Black Hawk takes an RPG to the tail rotor, which I guess that must be what happened, because it feels like it's basically the same crash, but just in a different area and the same circumstances. But so the second Black Hawk goes down. Here, 6-4 is engaging. We have one of the Delta guys with them. This is Sanderson. This is played by William Fichtner, who is just like the most character actor of all time. Like,
yeah,
you know who this guy is.
The ultimate character actor.
He's like the blind guy in Arrival. No, not Arrival. What's Contact?
Yeah, Contact. Yep.
He's like the mobster banker at the beginning of The Dark Knight. He's got the shotgun, remember?
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's in a lot of Michael Bay movies. But he does everything. So
yeah, you know this guy.
Yeah. Then this is where we get like there's two Delta snipers. I think they're still in one of the Blackhawks. They ask permission to like secure the second crash site. We cut to Twombly and Nelson. This is where I refer to them as the R2D2 and 3CPO, like they're making their way through town. They meet up with and almost kill Urich. That's the guy who like kind of slipped and fell, and like the one kid shot his father or something. Then we so there's a lot. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a great way to recount all this information for this movie, because now just things are happening in different places. But we cut to another scene. Here we get Grimes. I think he's with 6-4, another like ground unit. He like runs out and like grenades a technical with his grenade launcher, and there's like an RPG goes off near him, and he kind of gets covered in rubble, and then Sanderson comes and digs him out of the rubble. Which is this is like a good moment where it's like, oh, so he's not a pussy, like he did his job, and he's not necessarily like, he's still scared shitless, but he's like, oh well, I'm just gonna let my training do the work here because it's all I know what to do. So
yeah, it's not like I can't not fight. So.
Then we cut to the snipers get the go to secure the crash site. We're here. They set up as a whole thing. It was like basically it's like, you're gonna like, you're asking to go like die, right? And they're like, yeah, no, we're gonna do that. So and these guys got eventually got a Medal of Honor for this. Then we come back to one of the convoys, and one guy who's like a driver like takes a RPG to like the stomach, and it doesn't explode. They just like, so he dies, and so like they just like knock him over, and he's like, oh, he's got an unexploded rocket in him, and it's like I think like McKnight like turns him over, and it's like, it's like, well, one of his guys died, but he has to look at the moment and go like, Jesus Christ, like it didn't explode. That's weird.
Yeah, son of a bitch. It didn't explode.
Yeah, I guess in that situation, like you can't take time to really mourn people. You got to get out of there. It's like, well, we got his body. Like, let's go.
Well, too, and let's remember the back of these trucks are starting to look like a slaughterhouse at this point. Like
Yeah.
they're covered in blood because they have these hostages that they took. Some of those people have been shot
Yeah.
because these Humvees are just, and these are like the pre-Iraq War Humvees where the guys on top shooting. Like there's no armored shields around them or
No.
anything. They're just like open top, hanging out there with a 50, and people are shooting at them from the rooftops.
Yeah, Humvees aren't bulletproof. They're supposed to be light maneuverable vehicles. So
Yeah, they're literally driving down like corridors where just it's like the gauntlet where just people are just like shooting down. I mean, they don't even need to expose their bodies. They can just hang the AK out and shoot down and hit these guys.
yeah.
Um, which is like I read from the book. It was like, yeah, it was really that bad, and like you could get on the 50 calibers and clear them off the roof. I mean, kill a lot of people too, which they were a little reticent about because people just lived in those houses too. It's like, oh, we're just firing into houses. 50 caliber can go through multiple walls and buildings, and it's just carries on. It's got so much throw weight behind it. So, but yeah, they were being saturated with. They're also dropping grenades on them too, which I don't think happened in the movie.
No.
But I remember reading like they were like one of the things they do is like they would actually just wait and see if they could drop a grenade. It would go off like in the middle of the air to kill the guy on the gun.
Cooking hand grenades.
Yeah, which I mean, it wasn't like cooking them. It's like they would try to do it. They would throw far enough ahead.
Oh, okay.
They could only go
just
one
get enough air times.
Yeah, even chewing cat, you're not enough of a lunatic to like clip the spoon on a hand grenade and just hang on to it. Like, no, you're throwing that thing as soon as you can. But it didn't work, but it was just very frightening because it's like they're even willing to attempt something like that, which means you're exposing yourself for a long time. Thankfully, they didn't have as many hand grenades as they did RPGs. So.
I think this is where like one of McDyke's guys like says like, "Hey, I'm shot." He's like, "Everybody's shot. We got to move."
Yeah, you got to get in there and drive. That guy that just took a rocket to the guts, you got to replace him.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm shot, Colonel." He's like, "We're all shot," which is like wild to think about. It's like, yeah, it's probably right.
Also, like, I don't think I mentioned a lot of finger stuff. A lot of people just like missing fingers now.
Yeah.
Because I think there's that one Urich part where he's like he goes to that building and there's like that family like cowering, and I think he kind of waves at him. I don't know if he just has a weird wave or if he's like missing a finger. I didn't know.
Yeah, it was hard to know because the one guy was like trying to hold his finger together.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, just wrap this up so I don't like, lose it. I know we can't attach it in the field, but.
Oh, and there's another thing where like a guy just finds a hand and just tucks it away.
Yeah, he puts it in like his empty ammo pouch.
Yeah.
And the guy's yelling at him like, "Pay attention!" Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, there's a hand laying, and it was obviously a hand from an American because it had the watch on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just picked it up just in case, and I know from the book that it's extra weird because the guy picked up, his name is Sergeant Hand.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's weirdly humorous and sad at the same
time. We got to the snipers get like they're at the second crash site. They get because one of the pilots is still alive because a Black Hawk has 2 pilots in it, so I believe so, right? Yeah, right. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, 2 guys. Yeah.
And so they pull the one pilot's alive, which I always, for some reason, I always thought this was Tim Roth, but no, it's one of the guys from Saving Private Ryan. So that's basically where I recognize him. But I always thought this was like Tim Roth putting on an American accent. But no, it's
looks
just
like Tim Roth.
Yeah, it looks like Tim Roth. Yeah. So like they get the pilot out and they kind of put him in an enclosure. He says like my legs are broke and my back feels funny. So basically he can't walk. So like they drag him out. They kind of put him in an enclosure, and then they go back and kind of like hold off people as like the crash site's just getting surrounded by people. Then we cut to McKnight gets a call to go to the second crash site, And he says he can't do it because he looks back in the truck and he's the only able-bodied person that's alive. Um, even though he's also shot. I'm not sure, like, because there's some point where, like, something blows up in the Humvee, and, like, the driver gets, like, glass in his eye, and he's blind, and he just says, keep your foot on the gas, and so McKnight is steering the car, the Humvee, while this guy's just holding his foot on the gas. He can't see anything.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that happens here or later, but it's just another, like, oh, man, that sucks. Everything about this sucks. It's so we get a time punch here. We get 4:54 p.m. Although it basically seems like it's dusk now, so it's like getting very dark. Which I guess it's October, so it would get dark earlier. So, the convoy's getting
this essentially has been going on almost, it seems like, in real time.
yeah. But yeah, where does it start? Let's see if I have the start. So it started at 2:30. This is like 2.5 hours later.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's been 15 minutes of just continuous fighting. But it does. This is one of the things the movie does well, is to compress all this stuff into a small time period. I mean, it's supposed to be like this is like a half a day encounter, and then they make it seem like this is all happens in 2 hours, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's a swift movie, I guess. For a 2.5 hour movie, it goes by pretty quick once it gets going. The McKnight's convoy gets called back to base. There's still guys left in the city, so it's like Everman's group, and I think it's 2-5 and 6-4 are out there. Just some help. The guys that got dropped off in the Blackhawks are kind of like holding down some buildings, some rubble somewhere. This is also where, like, they've got cut back to the snipers holding everybody off. Gordy, one of the snipers, gets killed, and here they're just like picking up all the guns that are left around and just shooting with what ammo they have and they can find, and just like killing as many people as they can. Even got the pilot's got an MP5, and he's like trying to fend off people, just like sitting on his ass and shooting people. I think you're muted. Sorry. So Gordy gets killed, and then he's the other sniper. He gets killed. And then like the people surround like the helicopter, and they kind of pull their bodies out, and then the pilot, like, they don't necessarily notice him yet because he's kind of tucked away in a corner, and so he's just kind of waiting, and basically just waiting to die. It's like, oh, this is going bad. And then eventually,
he was stabilizing that gun with like a wounded hand, a wounded arm too, which was even more like desperate and sad.
Then we got to General Garrison wants to call out, like, he puts a call out for the Pakistani army because they have tanks and APCs, so they want to pull them in. And he says like the 10th Mountain, so I'm not sure if that's like a UN group or a Pakistani group or another.
I know there's
American.
a 10th Mountain Division in the American military, but
okay, maybe I don't know, because like the other vehicles we see here on out are like UN and Pakistani vehicles.
Let's look at Operation Gothic Serpent, which is what this was actually called. Weird. Let's see. I like how combatants were called the National Somali Alliance. Yeah, it doesn't say. I don't know if that's the American 10th Mountain or the Pakistani, and there was also Malaysian troops involved.
Huh. Then the pilot uses his last bullet, and then he just kind of sits there and waits. I think he looks at a picture or something because he drops a picture of his family or something. One of the people runs up and just hits him in the head. And then one of the enemy leaders, they have the foresight to just not kill the pilot. It's like, no, this is a bargaining chip. Don't kill him.
Yeah.
He must be the
one guy. He just fires a gun in the air, and he's like, I claim this guy for, who was it, a deed or whoever.
Yeah, this guy, this guy's good looking. He seems to have, like, teeth intact, so, he's one of the smart ones.
Yeah. Speaks English.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, then there's a second convoy. They're out like kind of. They're trying to get to the second crash site, but they can't. Every road in the city is roadblocked. This is where you get like those one like intelligent officers that are like flying around the helicopter, which they're doing this whole time in this movie. Like they're not engaging. They're just like looking from above and trying to direct.
Yeah.
But they don't take any fire. But I get another timestamp. It's 5:50 p.m. 6-4 makes their way to 2-5. Here I write the droids make their way to 2-5. That's Twombly and Nelson. Here they kind of like run like across an open field in stages. I think Yurik goes first and he's fine, and then Twombly goes. He gets shot in the back, but he has like so much ammo in his back that like he's saved by the ammo, but then the ammo starts cooking off. So he's like, "Get it off me! Get it off me!"
Yeah. Very scary.
Yeah. And then there's a couple more people like they go to get like Twombly and like Nelson. Like a couple more people get shot in the leg. Here, one of them's Smith, which he got hit in like the artery, so he's starting to bleed out, and they can't get a medevac in. So because they call in to get a medevac, and it's like, it's too hot, we can't do that right now. And then Hoot and what the hell did I write here? Hoot makes it to the second chopper, but they don't find any bodies, and so they blow up the chopper and leave, which is what you do.
Yeah.
Which we even did that in the and the Osama bin Laden raid. One copter went down, you got to blow it up, put everybody on the other one.
Blow up the stealth helicopter.
Which was also a black op, just with further developments.
Yeah.
Durant the pilot is being interrogated by a Somalian who speaks English. Here we also cut to like there's one of the Blackbirds is flying around, and they're putting out a broadcast through like a loudspeaker. It says, "Mike Durant, we won't believe you behind," which is interesting and desperate. Also, I don't, I'm guessing they must have done that because it just seems weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering. It's like, did they really do that, or is that just establish something? But it's like it wasn't very clear, so they probably did that.
Yeah. Then we come back
it's
to
like they could like put out stuff on the TV or something. I don't know.
Then we come back to like where Smith, the doc's operating on Smith, and they try to like clamp off the femoral artery. But they basically got to like cut into his leg even more to try to grab stuff. This is like one of the most wincing scenes you can watch, because it's like, oh, we gotta grab this artery, we miss it, and it rolls up like a window shade, and this guy's gonna bleed to death. It's like, oh, this is horrifying. So they know he's going to die. Although it takes him a while to die. So that being the act 2, because it's like this, like one of the saddest moments. Then we have kind of like their comeback here. We got Act 3. Grimes is making coffee. Sanderson tries to attend to his foot. Then they start taking fire. And then Hoot make their way like behind the enemies that are ambushing Sanderson and Grimes. And so like they just like kill those guys in silence, like they could Garrett them. And then they have like a recoilless rifle on like a big recoilless rifle thing on their technical, and so they aim that at the other technical and blow that up. And then General Garrison orders night air support, like with night strobes. And then we got to McKnight is like gearing up to go back out, and he's being discouraged to do so because they got the Pakistanis there, and they're like, yeah, we'll just send them, and you don't have to. And he's like, well, somebody's got to go out there. Got another timestamp. It's 11:23. The UN tanks roll into the Pakistani stadium. But yeah, I looked up on a map, and I was like, how close is Pakistan to Somalia? And it's like, it's kind of distant, so I don't know like what was going on, what the Pakistanis were doing here. Was
probably just serving as part of the UN force.
Okay, all right. They were just the closest relevant force that they could put in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of that UN stuff, like I learned, it depends on like what what they have and what they can transport, because a lot of countries, unlike America, don't have that massive airlift system.
Yeah.
So a lot of things are chosen just like, well, what's the closest and or can be driven or taken in by rail.
Yeah.
And that includes like European countries too. Like they like the British, they don't have a lot of ways to move people around.
Huh.
Like not airlift. They have ships, but it's like, I didn't know that.
Then we cut back to now Smith is dying, and like everyone tries to comfort him. It's like, yeah, because even they do the operation to try to clamp it off. They're like, Eversman just lies to him. It's like, yeah, we got it, because he doesn't know what to do. Yeah, also there's kind of a whole thing here where they kind of make Eversman to be like the lefty who has to like be considerate of everything. That's kind of his purpose in this movie.
Yeah, he's seen as a progressive character because he just doesn't just like nakedly hate people. It's like, the best thing for these people is death. It's like he's not that guy, so it's like, well, he's got to have a sensitive moment. It's like, yeah.
Well, even though it's like they have like the evening prayer, he's like the one that like points that out. It's like he's like, all right, you got some time to like get over here because they're praying right now. And he's like the only guy that knows what's going on apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, you presume the other people would know, but they just point that out.
Yeah, because the guy's screaming from a minaret. It's like it's prayer time. It's like, well, you think even the dumbest person.
But yeah, they're trying to comfort Smith as he's dying. He's like, yeah, we're gonna tell your parents that you fought hard. Then he just dies, and the medic tries to resuscitate him, but then like Eversman's just got to be like, hey man, it's like it's not more he can do.
Yeah, it becomes that really sad like chest pumping.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna give him CPR as hard as I can. Like, no, you're just gonna collapse his ribcage. Stop.
Yeah, I don't think he has any more blood to move around.
Yeah.
Here we kind of who and Eversman kind of debate the circumstances. Like they're going, it's like, actually I forget what the debate they have. I don't know. This is supposed to be like the two sides here between Eversman and Hoot, because Hoot's just like, I just gotta roll with it. Eversman's like, man, people died here. It's like, oh yeah, more people are gonna die. We got to make sure enough of our people don't die.
Yeah. Like death is baked into the sauce here, but all we can do is sweeten it up so more of our guys don't die.
So yeah, they go back out to fight the enemies that are surrounding them. Everman's like he throws the strobe out, but like it's under some rubble. So then Eversman has to move closer, and he throws the strobe light on the roof, which is like the blackbirds have like night vision and stuff, and they can see the strobe. And so they just go up and just use their miniguns on the side of this thing and just light up like a roof just full of people. They just kill like 1,000 guys here.
Yeah, a bunch of people died.
Yeah, this is where it's like, if you want to show like how gnarly are these guns, and like, I don't actually know, but here it's just like limbs are just flying off like they're the crash test dummies, like when they're getting shot.
Oh yeah. I think one review of this movie said that the helicopters would show up and fire the salsa guns. It would just turn people into like chunky salsa. Like, I've never heard of that. Okay, that's weird.
Which I guess in the movie, and if you're in a patriotic mood at this time, it's like, the bad guys are getting there. So.
Yeah, we're screwing them up. We're killing poor people. Show them who's boss. With $1 million state-of-the-art weaponry.
The McKnight's convoy shows up, and they start picking up Rangers. We got a timestamp of 2:05 a.m. Let's see here. I don't know. I forget. We cut to like who is like. They get to the I think it's the first crash site, because this is where Elvis is, where he's dead, and they start cutting the dead pilots out of the crash.
Yeah.
And here they're starting to learn, it's like they can't fit everybody in the convoy, so it's like some of the Rangers are going to be like need to like hang off the trucks or go by foot.
They don't want to hang off the trucks because everyone's shooting at the truck. So it's like, we're just going to get shot doing that.
Timestamp 5:45 a.m. Monday, October 4th. They finally get the bodies out. Which here that like they have like a back and forth with the general about like just do what you can to get them out. And I thought they were just gonna like cut the pilot's legs off and then just pull him out of there, but they didn't do that.
Which kind of surprised me. I thought that was good. That's the message, is like, dead body, get the majority of the
Yes.
remains. Don't need to dismantle a helicopter in the middle of a combat zone. By the way, with fuel like saturating the ground and everything, it's like, yeah, get out the torches and shit. It's like that. Guess it really happened.
Because here's a big timestamp where it's like, presumably it took them 3 hours to get these pilots out of there, to cut that out of there. It's like, damn, that's a long time to be doing that work. But you know, that's also like show like, you know, this means something to them. Like we don't leave anyone behind. Like it's like this.
Yeah, it's on the movie poster, like no one left behind or something. And is that a U.S. military thing in general, or is this just peculiar to the Rangers? Like they don't leave their dead.
I don't know. I don't know. It's because I know like we are soldiers or we were soldiers. What's that one with the Mel Gibson Vietnam one? Because that's a big thing there soldiers. Too. But that's also a thing in the Marines where it's like, yeah, no dead left behind. Although in the Marines, it's kind of like, because you watch these movies, it's like somebody died. Like we got to send other people to also die to get these dead bodies. Then we got to send more people to get dead bodies. And then like in going through the Marines and learning about stuff, it's like, yeah, you got to get the dead bodies, but you don't have to get them immediately.
Yeah. Well, I'd be like, well, what about that like white phosphorus thing you did with the other downed? Does this not too count? It's like kind of a funeral pyre. It's like, yes, we didn't let the body. You definitely don't want like the enemy to desecrate the body in a public way. Like, that's demoralizing. But it's like, well, yeah, you don't want the enemy to steal your supplies from your tanks and downed helicopters either. So it's like, yeah, just white phosphorus grenades. You know, it's just. I'm not even being a wise ass. I'm just like, how many more people are going to have to die, you know, in service of this?
Yeah.
It's like we went in to get one body back. We came back with 6. It's like, that doesn't seem like a good, you know, payoff. But, you know, there's also traditions and things that are important.
I don't know if it's like maybe one of those weird psychological things. It's like we don't leave anybody behind, and so it just makes everyone fight harder if like, well, we got to get some kind of victory. It's like if we're not winning the land, we at least got to get the bodies or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, I do understand it on a certain level, but again, when you start doing American math war, it's like, well, this is really quite expensive.
No, you were meant to die. We don't. That's just a waste to pick up the bodies.
Yeah, this is kind of like, you know, this was the excess that you trim from the final product. People get really mad when you talk about it that way, but that's the way they plan it. That's like real. That's not something people are making up to be wise asses. It's like, nope.
Which is why, like, on the ground, getting the bodies back is an important thing. Like, that's...
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, these guys sent us to die. We need to make sure that, like, not necessarily that was for something, but to show that we cared.
We kind of repudiate the cold-bloodedness of it's like, no, this actually matters that the family has a body to bury.
Yeah. But yeah, they wrap things up. They move out. They blow up the other chopper. A group of Rangers is like running in the back of the convoy. They start taking fire, and they have to run to the stadium because like one guy's like, get on top. And he's like, I'm not gonna get on top. They're shooting at the. But yeah, because he also like Grimes is like he gets in the APC and he doesn't leave it for the rest of the movie. So
yeah, he's done. He's like, God, my duty to king and country is done. Thanks.
So here we get like the mythical Mogadishu Mile, where like these guys have to run to the stadium for where they are.
And half of them can barely walk. Like
they're all shot. Yeah,
hobbling along, and they're being followed by guys who apparently suddenly are like Star Wars stormtroopers. They can't hit anything.
Yeah. Well, this is like I wrote like the weird part. It's also all in slow motion. I wrote the weird part is like a crowd has gathered and there's like kids running with them, which when I first watched this movie, I thought that was like an intimidation thing. But I'm guessing these are the people that the Americans are presumably helping. And so they're like, hey, the Americans, they're fighting against them. Not realizing that they're going to leave like 2 days later and be fucked.
Yeah. We like these guys. They give us chocolates and the beheadings are a lot less when they're here. And also realize when you look at that map, it's like they make it seem like, oh, it's just like this huge American loss. We failed. It's like we controlled 90% of the capital. It's just the area these guys were in was like where the one warlord they couldn't control was. So
Yeah.
yeah, what they were running into, like those people were like happy they were there
Yeah.
because they got to eat for a day or something. Just like stuff we don't even think about. It's like it's a big deal. So that
But
stuff's so sad.
so at this point, like the other thing, like left, their like loose thread is like the one pilot's still out there, but essentially like this is like the operation's over at this point. Like everyone's retreated except for the one pilot. Here we have Sanderson gets tea for Grimes because he couldn't find coffee.
Yeah.
I think I forget the yeah. They're probably like, where'd they find you? And he's like, in the office. He's like, no, not kidding. I was in the previous scene because as soon as he like tries to explain that, like, oh yeah, I made coffee for the Iraq War, then they start taking shots. We cut to General Garrison's like visiting the OR. He's like trying to like do anything he can, which is just like cleaning up blood from the floor. He's like, he can't do anything here. Just,
Yeah.
we get Captain Steele comforts Ruiz. Because that is the whole thing where like there's like in the moment between Steele and Ruiz where it's like Ruiz is basically I think he's also shot in the legs and like he's like, I can still fight, Captain. It's like, so you bet you will, soldier.
Yeah.
So this is kind of Steele softening and kind of being like more like having feelings for like the people under him rather than just like follow the orders and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ruiz like wakes up. He's like, yeah, I'm in and out. The doctors say I'll be fine. And we cut to Hoot and Everson have like a debrief. Here they're basically like, going over the same, like, yeah, what was this all for? And here's where he explains, like, it's not like what you fought for. It's what, fighting for the person next to you. That's what it's all about. Because like, so he says when he goes back home and like people ask like, what'd you do in the war? He doesn't say anything because like they're not going to understand. So then Hoot like goes back out. He's also arming back up, and so he's gonna go back out and look for people. And Eversman's like, "All right, I guess I'll follow your lead." And Hoot's like, "Nah, I work better alone."
Yeah.
Which I don't know, like if that means anything or if it just makes him look more like a badass. That's just what he does. Because it starts off like in the movie, like he's out there alone by himself. So now it's ending with him doing the same thing, where he's just gonna wander off and presumably assassinate some high warlord or something like that.
Yeah.
Then we hear a voiceover. Eversman's like giving a speech to like his dead friend, which I don't, there's so many people in the movie I don't remember who this is, and or where they died. I don't remember.
I think this was the guy whose like femoral artery got sucked up into his body.
Oh, is this Smith? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Is this also the guy who said like wearing the blood type on your boots is bad luck?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh,
yes.
okay, all right.
Could be wrong, but
well then you see a room. It's a room with a bunch of like body bags, and then you realize like, oh, he's talking to his dead friend. But here he also mentions that Blackburn's like, hey, why are we going home? It's like, is we done? Did we win? And he's like, it's a little more complicated than that. So yeah, it's like, oh, this is the first time watching the movie. I realized like, oh, Blackburn's still alive. He's just not in the rest of this movie.
Yeah.
And then we got to titles, which I think there's like a voiceover, which I think it's like there's also a guy who like gives a letter to somebody, gives it to the guy with the broken arm, and he's like, I'm not taking no death note. And I think this is supposed to be the death note. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But here we get titles. It says during the raid, over 1,000 Somalians died and 19 American soldiers lost their lives. So when I say nothing is more expensive than killing an American life, this is what I'm talking about. That is insane. And that's like, and this is all.
It's the most Pyrrhic victory you will have.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, remember, like, how this is posed is, like, the Americans lost this engagement. And if you look at these numbers, it's like, doesn't seem like it.
No.
Seems like 19 American soldiers now have 19, very sad families, but the Somalians have over 1,000 sad families.
Yeah.
And they're
Somalians
dying
will
of
have to dig,
starvation.
like, yeah, and they have to live in Somalia. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's like they live in a Hieronymus Bosch painting.
We get a list of all the dead soldiers, like the real people that died in this engagement. And I noticed this time, I noticed like, oh, Sergeant Ruiz is on that list. So when Captain Seal's talking to him, he ends up dying.
Yep.
It's like, oh, that made it extra sad. I didn't realize that until this viewing. Oh yeah, this is where you get the voiceover. Some guy's reading a note, and I think it's at death. I'm not sure. I was playing at 1.5 speed. I was trying to write down all the titles here, so I didn't pay attention to it. I don't know if you have anything on that, this voiceover, Nathan.
No, not really.
Okay, all right. So I just forgotten. We get another title. It says Delta Sergeants Gary Gordon and Randy Shughart were the first soldiers to receive the Medal of Honor posthumously since the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Michael Durant was released after 11 days of captivity. 2 weeks later, President Clinton withdrew Delta Force and the Rangers from Somalia. And so, this is a big black mark on the Clinton administration and stuff. And this is something conservatives always hark back to as soft liberals. Yep.
So we should have nuked them after this.
Which, that's the president is supposed to deal with, deploying troops and foreign policy. That's literally what their job is. I know people like to think we elect a president and it's going to change in America completely, but that's not majority of what the president is supposed to do. Like, this is actually a part of what the president's supposed to do. So,
yeah, the president can start wars, can negotiate treaties, can set certain economic policies. There's certain, like, there's constitutional things he alone, like, is invested in. A lot of it's like military conquest, and mainly that was founded because our country was founded in revolution.
Yeah.
So we wanted the leader of the country to have maximum latitude to fight a war. It was just Congress's, job to fund it. That's where the, like, balance of powers come in. But yeah, this was this is one of those things, like, it was a humanitarian thing that just became a turkey shoot, and it's like, well, okay, we're done, because the mandate we had to go in here was to stop the starvation and the stealing of the food, and instead we got 20 Americans killed. So what's our best solution here? It's like, leave, because we can't fulfill this mandate. And, yeah. So, but then it becomes a thing like, oh, we should have, like, killed them all. Yeah, that would have. That's what we need to do. Because there are countries that act like that, like Russia. It's just like, yeah, you want to be like Russia. Just like, yeah, we're just going to kill everyone. That's just our foreign policy, is just, we're just, we're a country, we're like an egg. We have a hard shell but a soft middle, because, the country's really just a shambles. It's run by criminals, but we kill those who kill us. That makes us cool.
Well, it's also like the weird backfire of, like, liberal ideology, where it's like, America has so much, we're gonna feed the world, and then that gets used as, like, a chess piece against you. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The world's an evil place full of evil people, and any good you do will be, like, turned against you. The hand of friendship will be chopped off. It's like that. That's. But there's also a lot of cynicism in what we do too.
Yeah.
We've now. I mean, almost no.
Here's rice. Now make democracy happen, or else.
Yeah. But America's not uniquely cynical or evil. It's not like we're like, oh, it's I'm not like the Noam Chomsky school. Like, all evil traces back to America. It's like, no. It's a whole continuum of.
No, there's no nation in the world that is more generous than America that has ever existed.
No, never.
No country will ever surpass that. Now, but that still comes with problems.
Yeah, there's no nation, I think, that I really can think of since World War II that has not only said in word but in deed tried not to just act totally in the service of itself or just evil. Like that, there's a lot of countries that, like, talk a good game, there's all those countries in Scandinavia that's like, oh, you should live like this, you should do this, and it's like, yeah, you're the size of Maryland with half the population, so it's like, great, lecture us, cool. Because in terms of size of population, there's three countries: China, India, the United States. Now, one of those three countries has done a lot of good things in the last 80 years. The other two have not, for different reasons. But yeah, so yeah, it's like it's a hugely complicated animal, and yeah, foreign policy is weird. But some people just look for the faults. And it's like, oh, America fell short in this, like because we're always supposed to be like the winning team. We're like, oh, they win the Super Bowl every year, they can't make any mistakes, and it's like, no, that's not the real world.
Yeah, that's why I can be critical of America, but also like, no, I like America in general. What it wanted to do, I just hate when it does stupid stuff.
Yeah, me too. I laugh a lot, but like, there's no other country I am more loyal to, or there's no other country I want to be a part of. Like, this is it for me. I'm done. And it's really not hard to choose to be on this team because the record speaks for itself. I mean, unless some real weird sci-fi stuff happens, this is going to be the winning team for the next 100 years. I mean, it's like, it'll change shape.
Yeah, the league's going to even out, where it's going to be like, yeah, the play will be more even on the field, but it's still going to be.
I'm still wearing the Team America jersey, and I'll give all the support I can, from behind the lines. Like, win, because it's just, yeah, everyone has their place, and But yeah, that's.
But I was, this is around the Clinton administration, which is largely thought of as a incredibly peaceful and prosperous time.
Yeah, depending on how you look at it, yeah. I mean, not so much like later on.
Well, in America, it felt like that way. Maybe other. We got more titles. Major General William F. Garrison accepted full responsibility for the outcome of the raid, which I don't know what the fuck that means, because here it says on August 2nd, 1996, 3 years later, warlord Mohammed Farid Adid was killed in Mogadishu. The following day, General Garrison retired, which meant he still had a fucking job. So what? How did he take responsibility?
I take.
Is that just a gesture? Like, I know the gesture of like, I take full responsibility. Yeah. Don't fire anybody else, but he didn't get fired.
I take full responsibility for this. It's like, yes, you were the guy called General.
Yeah.
That was in charge of all this. It's like, well, who else was responsible for it? that your handsome sergeant there, the Danish actor, was he responsible for it? Let's see. What's a side story here? Let's see. Who was the guy? Steele was a real guy. It also basically got in some little trouble later in 2006, a few years later in the Iraq War. Well, actually, it was a lot later, 10 years later, for the what they called Operation Iron Triangle, where 4 soldiers were taken to what's called an Article 32 hearing, which I assume means they violated some form of the military code of justice or something.
No, I'm forgetting. It's the Uniform Code of Justice, I think. Oh, man.
Anyway, they violated some article, and they basically says they were shooting civilians. And they pretty much said
Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Okay.
UCMJ. Sorry, I missed what you just said.
So they violated one of those articles basically for murdering civilians. And they said, well, he told us to kill all military-age males, so we did. He did not speak in their defense or his own defense. Would not touch the hearing at all, was publicly reprimanded by General Chiarelli, which essentially ended his career. He was the guy famously, if you don't know this guy, he used what they called kill boards to track how many Iraqis each company in his battalion killed. This was something that got leaked to the news during the Iraq War and didn't look very good. It's like, okay. So yeah, he's done. His career ended. He retired as a colonel. Because I guess once you get publicly pilloried by a general, you're not what they call promotion eligible, which is probably a good thing because they don't usually reprimand people because they're just having a bad day.
But he gets to retire with military benefits and
Yeah, he didn't get like prosecuted for this or anything. So yeah, he, again, a real guy, not a good guy, a real guy.
hey, that's most people. Not a good guy, a real guy.
Yeah, just a human who just like
just trying.
Hey, look, I have problems to solve, and like we're being attacked by insurgents, so it's like, yeah, kill anyone who could attack us. It's like even the people that are unarmed, yeah, they could attack us someday, right? Right? Didn't I learn that at West Point? You know, it's okay.
So that's when he uses those unspoken rules that just everybody. It's when you write it down, you get in trouble for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you're like putting up like boards, like explaining, like, oh, we need to kill these people. It's like, sir, you're taking pictures and creating a chain of evidence. No,
Let's all go to my mind palace, and all we will all understand.
Yeah, just tell them to shoot the banthas. Shoot the what are the things called? Who are the little desert raiders that run around in the big truck thing? Jawas.
Yeah, Jawas.
Yeah, just use all Star Wars terminology. It's like we're gonna shoot the Jawas before they can build IEDs.
Does Jawas mean children, sir? I did not say that.
No, I'm literally mean Jawas. We're fighting sand people. Got to get the.
But Jawas aren't sand people, sir. It's semantics.
Yeah, it's all. Look, the things out in the dusty place need to die in quantity, so I
shoot
can write
anything that moves. Understand?
Yeah, just don't shoot each other because it leads to all kinds of letter writing that I don't want to have to do. Trying to run a war here.
Well, we're sending out a probe into space containing the supercut of the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene for this movie are we shoving into space?
Oh, we're going to do the Faith No More music over when they're getting ready to optimistically begin Operation Gothic Serpent. And it's like, we're going to get these guys. We're going to accomplish the mission. We're going to follow a car with a cross on the top of it. And so we're going to this is how it's done. And this is, all the optimism and the badassery that leads to the setup and the tables full of grenades and bullets. And it's like, yep, this is how it works. And that's the scene we're going to send out. Because if they, then it's like, well, it doesn't work out this way, obviously. But weirdly enough, at the end of the movie, tables full of grenades and bullets, it gets like, let's do it again. It's like, for what? The same result?
For revenge.
Yeah.
Well, if you like what you heard in Now Country, you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. Whatever you also find us on any platform you're listening to. We're on almost everything. You can, on that platform, you can rate our podcast. You can rate us whatever you want. But remember, the algorithm only listens to the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can sponsor us at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Cancel anytime. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube right here, where we are right now, at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/greedfactory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.